Chapter 1768. In the treasure refining place. During the flight, a stream of treasure refining Taoist qi in the shape of a firebird turned into a handful of light rain and integrated into the snow-white broken blade. Buzz. The broken blade emitted a strange buzzing sound, like a cheerful and passionate song. In the blink of an eye, the broken blade improved a lot under Lin Sun's gaze. Wisps of illusory and dreamlike light rain flowed between the sharp edges, emitting an aura that was extremely fierce and fierce. Undoubtedly, this stream of treasure refining Taoist qi was very unusual, and it had an amazing effect on improving the appearance of the broken blade. Lin Sun noticed that there was a looming golden Taoist pattern on the surface of the broken blade, like a dormant golden dragon, emitting a terrible aura of law. Natal treasure pattern. Ahu was shocked, and he was extremely moved. According to legend, only by subduing a natural treasure and refining it into a sacred artifact would one have the chance to develop an innate treasure marking. This means that this treasure already possesses the potential to give birth to an artifact spirit. I see. Lin Sun showed a look of enlightenment. He had also heard of the natal treasure pattern. The holy treasures in the world could be roughly divided into two categories. One was the ordinary holy treasure, and the other was the natal holy weapon. Ordinary holy treasures were common, and ordinary true saints would more or less own such holy treasures. The power of the holy treasures was related to the appearance of the holy treasures. Some special sacred treasures possessed miraculous powers that were unimaginably powerful. For example, the sword of Avicii and the sword of Yuan Killer in Lin Sun's hands belonged to the primordial holy treasures with incredible power. But the natal holy weapon was very particular. It was not only rare, but also extremely difficult to refine. It needed opportunities and opportunities. Generally speaking, the power of the natal holy weapon was far more powerful than that of the ordinary holy treasures of the same grade. Moreover, it could perfectly release all the potential of the practitioner. This was far beyond the reach of other holy treasures. The most important thing was that as long as it was constantly tempered and nurtured, the power and appearance of the natal holy weapon would be improved little by little. When a life-treasured mark was condensed, its might would undergo a qualitative transformation, and its might would undergo a tremendous change. When a life inscription was condensed and used in battle with a life saint weapon, a cultivator's battle prowess would increase by around 1%. Even though it was only 1%, but there was a limit to the combat strength of cultivators. Even if it was increased by just a little bit, it was very likely to turn the situation around. After condensing 10 inscriptions, the sacred weapon's battle prowess would undergo another transformation, allowing the cultivator's battle prowess to increase by 1/10. When 100 innate treasured markings were condensed, the combat strength of the divine armament would transform to a completely new height, and it would start to develop an artifact spirit embryo, allowing a cultivator's combat strength to double. This was actually very similar to cultivators breaking through to the next realm. However, the advancement of a sacred weapon was based on the grade of the innate treasured mark, and the final objective was to condense an artifact spirit. An artifact spirit possessed intelligence, mental state, cultivation, and combat strength, and it was practically no different from a true cultivator. However, artifact spirits were just too rare. It was extremely difficult to nurture a single artifact spirit out of thousands of natal sacred weapons. But as long as there was an artifact spirit, the power released in battle was absolutely beyond imagination. For example, the artifact spirit of the insignificant Bao was named Wu Quebet. When he was in the Sunset Tang Valley, he killed the king of sages as easily as killing a chicken. According to Wu Ke, Phylan, which was transformed by the blood-colored moth, was also an artifact spirit called the Chaos Bell of the Great Way. And Phylan was looking for an opportunity to prove itself and become an emperor. This was the horror of the artifact spirit. "Brother Lin, where did you get this broken blade?" Ahu couldn't help asking. Lin Sun's heart skipped a beat. When he was in Xiao Empire and entered the 9 tests of Green Cloud Path in the Heaven Accessing Place, he was moved to a place called the Ancient Spirit World for training. The broken blade in his hand, the spirit refining gourd with a drop of purple blood sealed in it, the spirit-eating bug little silver, the Luoho horn and other treasures were all obtained from the Ancient Spirit World. With the improvement of experience over the years, Lin Sun was sure that the Ancient Spirit World was definitely not in the Ancient Desolation domain. However, even Lin Sun himself couldn't determine where the Ancient Spirit World was. This was because the Heaven Accessing Place was left behind by the Master of Tongtian, Luo Tongtian, and Luo Tongtian was a supreme existence from the other side of the starry sky. Back then, Luo Tongtian had also entered the ultimate. However, whether the Ancient Spirit World was on the other side of the starry sky or somewhere in the world of the ancient way of the starry sky, even Lin Sun didn't dare to speculate. "Ahu, what do you see?" Lin Sun asked. "This treasure is incomplete, and only a blade remains. The tip of the blade was originally the core part of the treasure, but it has disappeared. Even so, it still possesses such an inconceivable and wondrous aura. One can well imagine how extraordinary this treasure would be if it was complete." A thoughtful look appeared in Ahu's beautiful eyes. "Moreover, the strangest thing is that this treasure is clearly incomplete, but it gives me a feeling of perfection, especially this natal treasure mark." As she spoke, she pointed at the surface of the broken blade. "I've seen many innate treasured markings, but there are very few that emit the aura of its light is like the Tao, its spirit is like a dragon, like this treasure." Finally, she looked at Lin Sun and made an inference. "I suspect that this treasure has long since transformed into an artifact spirit, but for some reason, this treasure's destiny treasured mark has always been sealed. Only by absorbing the power of the treasure refining Tao Qi can those sealed destiny treasured marks be unsealed one by one." Lin Sun's eyes flashed and he was lost in thought. Of course, the broken blade was very unusual. It was branded with the imprints of Yuan, Ji and Zhu, so its power was extremely great. In the past, he had always thought that the broken blade was incomplete, but now it seemed that he had been thinking wrongly. If the life treasure mark was sealed, then the broken part of the blade wasn't truly lost, but was also sealed? When Lin Sun thought of this, when he looked at the broken blade again, there was a hint of subtlety in his eyes. For example, the successors of those great orthodoxies who entered the treasure refining place this time also came to improve the power of their natal divine weapons. "You might as well take this opportunity to have a try," Ahu suggested. Lin Sun nodded. In the following time, the two wandered in the treasure refining place, looking for treasure refining qi. It was calm along the way and there was no accident. At the same time, the news that Lin Sun killed Yen Chunjun, the successor of the Heaven and Earth Taoism court, began to spread in the treasure refining place. For a time, there was an uproar and a sensation. How can this boy's combat power be so terrifying? Be careful. If you meet this guy, avoid him as much as possible and try to avoid conflict with him. And the woman named who beside him killed Wei Zia, the successor of the Daluo Sword Mountain, with a light strike. She is extremely terrible and can't be underestimated. Similar discussions began to sound among the strong people from different forces on the starry sky ancient path. Yen Chunjun and Wei Zia are both dead, and even when Qingxue failed to kill him, when he heard the news, Ji Qian, the successor of the Xuanji Taoism sect, was directly stunned, and there was an uncontrollable chill in his heart. Eldest senior brother, is this true? Jiang Heng also opened her watery eyes wide, feeling shocked and surprised. The news was spread by the disciples of the Panwu Taoism court, so it can't be false. Ji Qian frowned. This is troublesome. With my combat power, I can only be equal to Yen Chunjun at most. Even if I use my trump card, I'm afraid it won't work. Yen Chunjun must have some terrible trump cards in his hands, but he died in the end. He was a little depressed. For a long time, he regarded Lin Sun as a prey. He not only wanted to avenge Jiang Heng, but also wanted the Tower of Endless Tao and the flying immortal token in Lin Sun's hands. But now he felt it was tricky. Jiang Heng was very unhappy. She gritted her teeth and said, "Damn it, how can a thief from the ancient Desolation realm be so powerful?" A figure silently floated up into appearance. He had slanted brows, starry eyes, a refined and handsome appearance, and a bamboo ruler hung obliquely on his waist, causing him to seem like a young scholar that was reading the books of sages. "Brother Meng." Ji Qian was stunned and immediately saluted. At the same time, he quickly transmitted his voice to Jiang Heng. "Junior sister, this is Meng Yi, a pure-blooded descendant of the Qiongqi battle clan." Jiang Heng's clear eyes narrowed. The Qiongqi battle clan was one of the top 10 battle clans in the Starry Sky. This clan was famous for its ferocity, bloodthirst, and belligerence. Its foundation was extremely ancient and strong. Meng Yi, on the other hand, was different from this clan. He was gentle, elegant, and like a gentleman. On the Starry Ancient Path, very few people had seen Meng Yi fight, and no one knew how powerful his combat power was. However, his name had always occupied the 66th place on the Starry Sky Sage list, which was extremely dazzling. Because of this ranking, many experts on the Starry Ancient Path had questioned him. In this regard, a big shot of the dark yellow celestial court only responded with one sentence: "Meng Yi is like a sword hidden in a sheath. When the blade is unsheathed, it will definitely shake the starry sky." At this point, no one dared to question it anymore, because the words of the dark yellow celestial court represented a kind of supreme authority. Knowing that the person in front of her was the different Meng Yi of the Qiongqi battle clan, Jiang Heng's heart also fluctuated. She did not expect that such a mysterious character would also come to the Kunlun ruins. "Brother Ji, long time no see," Meng Yi said with a smile, and then nodded slightly to Jiang Heng as a form of greeting. After a pause he continued, "I came uninvited. I just want to know more about the fellow Taoist named Lin Sun." "Brother Meng, are you also here for the flying immortal token?" Ji Gon asked in surprise. Meng Yi nodded and said, "I came to the Kunlun ruins this time to go to a forbidden place, but it's too dangerous there. I need a flying immortal token to turn misfortune into blessing." "I see." Ji Gon nodded. He pondered for a moment and said, "We happen to have our eyes on this boy. Why don't you join us?" Meng Yi said happily, "It couldn't be better if we could." Beside him, Jiang Heng still felt like she was dreaming when she saw this scene. Was such an elegant and gentle man really a descendant of the Qiongqi battle clan known for being bloodthirsty, belligerent, and ferocious? Too different. Chapter 1770. A few days passed in a hurry. In the depths of a barren desert, Lin Sun and Ah Hu flew in the void and went deeper. Why do I feel that the deeper I go, the less treasure-refining qi I encounter? Lin Sun frowned. In the past few days, he and Ah Hu moved together and obtained some treasure-refining Dao qi, but they were all ordinary goods and had little effect on improving the broken blade. Moreover, there wasn't a single treasure-refining Dao qi that could form the snow lotus or the fire bird. Lin Sun was speechless as he watched time go by. The treasure-refining place was only the periphery of Kunlun ruins. According to Ah Hu, they had to leave in half a month at most. Otherwise, they would miss the opportunity to enter the depths of Kunlun ruins. That's normal. This treasure-refining place is like a small world. It looks vast, but the number of powerhouses who came this time is quite large, and the amount of treasure-refining qi is limited. In this way, there are too many monks and not enough gruel. It's naturally difficult to obtain the treasure-refining qi that we like. Ah Hu explained. Lin Sun nodded. In these past few days, they'd encountered the figures of many experts all along the way, but most of them avoided far away when they saw their figures appear, as they were deeply afraid of being unable to avoid them. It was impossible for them to provoke them. However, through this matter, they understood that with the death of Wei Zia and Yen Chunjun, the powerhouses who entered the Kunlun ruins this time had realized how powerful they were. Under normal circumstances, those who were not strong enough would not dare to take the initiative to offend them. Suddenly, Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed. In his divine sense, there was a huge ravine that was like an abyss in the depths of the desert. In the ravine, black mist surged, and from time to time, dazzling flames would flash. There were red, blue, cyan, black, silver, gold. It was extremely beautiful. At the same time, Ahu was also stunned, and a strange light burst out of her beautiful eyes. "Let's go take a look." Lin Sun rushed over first. The ravine was filled with black mist, emitting a strange and cold aura. It was bottomless and isolated the detection of divine sense. As soon as he arrived near this area, Lin Sun's body suddenly stagnated with goosebumps all over his body. He sensed an unknown danger. He immediately stopped and stood in the air, looking down at the ravine. So much treasure refining Dao Qi. Ahu also came and exclaimed in surprise. Within the black mist of the ravine, streams of treasure refinement Dao Qi were faintly discernible like colorful meteors, emitting alluring divine light. Moreover, there were even some miraculous phenomena. There were small green trees swaying gracefully in the black mist. Their leaves were translucent, as if they were alive. There were golden birds flapping their wings and letting out clear cries, their voices gentle and melodious. Crimson lightning turned into strands of rune-like shapes that flickered repeatedly. When he witnessed this scene, Ahu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Shockingly, these phenomena were the manifestation of numerous strands of treasure refinement Dao energy of extremely extraordinary quality. "Looks like the heavens are looking out for us." Ahu smiled sweetly. Although her appearance had changed, there was still a natural charm and amorous feeling in her every frown and smile. Lin Sun also smiled and said with burning eyes, "You protect me, and I'll take these treasures." As he said, he reached out his hand and grabbed. Boom! A cauldron-like abyss was condensed with intertwining laws and shining brilliantly. It shrouded a strand of treasure refinement Dao Qi in the black mist of the ravine. A strange scene appeared. The black mist rolled violently, and ghost-like figures rushed out. Their bodies were all condensed by the black mist, emitting a terrible evil spirit. Bang! 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 A deafening explosion sounded. The power of those black foggy figures was so terrible that it directly shattered Lin Sun's grasping force. Lin Sun's black pupils shrank, and he took action again without hesitation. Boom! This time, he ran all his strength, and a substantial shadow of the abyss emerged, producing a domineering power that could swallow the world. In an instant, those black mist figures exploded one by one. Lin Sun's palm was about to absorb a strand of treasure refinement Dao Qi in the shape of a green small tree. A wisp of pure divine flame swept out, and Lin Sun's attack was instantly incinerated like a piece of paper. Be careful! This wisp of Kunlun divine flame has a trace of light golden color, and it already possesses a trace of the terrifying lethality of soul-destroying wind flame. A trace of seriousness appeared between Ahu's eyebrows. In the treasure refinement place, there were two kinds of Kunlun divine flames that were the most terrifying. One was golden and the other was purple. They were called soul-destroying wind flame. The power of this kind of divine flame was enough to easily kill the great sage of peerless heaven. The wisp of pure cyan divine flame with a touch of golden color in front of him undoubtedly showed that its lethality was far beyond ordinary. There was no need for Ahu to remind him. Lin Sun also realized the danger of the situation. He looked calm, waiting for the wisp of pure cyan divine flame to rush out and kill him. Above his head, a cauldron-like myriad wonderful flames appeared out of thin air. Immediately, the pure green divine flame let out a cry that sounded like a human's shriek, and it fled in panic while it was still halfway there. Unfortunately, it was a step too late. The myriad wonderful flames were simply like the supreme master of flames, and it gently swept through the void. A wisp of light rain swept out, drawing a long line in the void, and then it suddenly restrained the pure cyan divine flame, and took it back. Bang! The pure cyan divine flame was like a delicacy, and it was swallowed up by the myriad wonderful flames. At the same time, Lin Sun also made a move at the first possible moment, and he grasped the treasure refining chi that had evolved into a small green tree in his hand. He succeeded. A smile appeared on the corners of Lin Sun's mouth. But the next moment, he was stunned. In the huge ravine, the black mist rolled, and the wisps of treasure refining chi that were flying in it dissipated in the depths of the black mist like frightened fish. Lin Sun and Ah Hu looked at each other. "Let me try again." Lin Sun took a deep breath and made a move again. Boom! The black mist was rolling. Lin Sun's palm power was so terrible, but as soon as it fell into the ravine, it was silently dissolved and dispersed. Lin Sun's pupils shrank. He thought for a moment, and then he took out a blue shuttle and suddenly rushed into the black mist of the ravine. A terrible scene appeared. As soon as the blue shuttle entered the ravine, it was covered by an invisible strange force and melted away inch by inch. It should be known that this was a holy treasure, but it was erased in the blink of an eye. Lin Sun was shocked. This ravine is full of a strange force, which can not only offset all external attacks, but also can kill us if we get close to it. Ah Hu also saw it and said, "The treasure refining chi should be lurking in the depths of the ravine, like frightened fish. We can't enter it either. It seems that we can only wait." Lin Sun nodded. As time went by, the black mist in the ravine was rolling. Lin Sun refined the treasure refining chi he had obtained before and integrated it into the broken blade. Visible to the naked eye, a life treasure tattoo appeared on the surface of the broken blade again. But it was extremely vague and did not condense. When a life treasure tattoo is condensed, it can increase the combat power of a practitioner by about 1%. But the next transformation of the broken blade needs 10 life treasure tattoo, Lin Sun deduced. At this speed, at least more than 10 treasure refining chi should be obtained, and the quality should not be weaker than that of the treasure refining chi that derived the vision of the green tree. After half an hour, a red lightning appeared in the depths of the black mist. When it flashed, wisps of electric light turned into obscure symbols, which were quite mysterious. Lin Sun's eyes lit up. He didn't rush to take action, but waited patiently. Gradually, the scarlet bolt of lightning danced in the ravine like a happily swimming fish. Whoosh! Finding the right time, Lin Sun took action without hesitation. It was incredibly fast. Familiar scenes appeared in the black mist of the ravine. Ghost-like phantoms emerged with monstrous, killing intent. But they were all defeated by Lin Sun soon. Whoosh! A red flame sprang out to block Lin Sun's attack. It was glowing with a touch of gold, and its power was also extremely terrifying. But as the wonderful flames of Wei swept out, this flame, which was enough to make any peerless sage tremble with fear, was swallowed up like a preyed insect. And Lin Sun took the opportunity to absorb the treasure refining chi. Catch! Lin Sun threw the treasure refining chi to Ah Hu. Ah Hu was a little surprised and couldn't help saying, "You need it more than I do. Since we act together, the opportunities we get should be divided equally." Lin Sun smiled. Ah Hu no longer refused. The two continued to wait. In the depths of the black mist of the ravine, there were countless treasure refining chi, just like a school of fish. Lin Sun and Ah Hu were like anglers, waiting for the fish to take the bait with patience. Another 2 hours passed. Whoosh! A stream of treasure refining chi appeared in the black mist, and Lin Sun repeated the same trick. Unfortunately, the quality of this treasure refining chi was only ordinary, and it could barely condense the second life treasure tattoo of the broken blade. Lin Sun was not discouraged and continued to wait. 2 hours later, Lin Sun had another harvest. He subdued a stream of treasure refining chi and gave it to Ah Hu. 10 hours later, 2 days later, Lin Sun subdued a total of 12 streams of treasure refining qi, half of which were given to Ah Hu, and the other half were used on the broken blade. Today, the broken blade had condensed 4 life treasure tattoos, each of which was golden, like a dormant golden dragon. As Ah Hu said, its light is like Tao and its spirit is like a dragon. It was extremely rare. And Lin Sun was also keenly aware that the quality and power of the broken blade were rising at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this time, Lin Sun once again locked on the target. This was a stream of treasure refining qi that had evolved the vision of a golden battle axe. Its quality was excellent, absolutely top-notch, and it was obviously more extraordinary than the previous ones. However, when Lin Sun repeated the same trick and was about to take action, suddenly, Ah Hu, who was not far away, suddenly turned her head, and her beautiful eyes flashed with a touch of coldness. "Sneaky, get out!" Ah Hu shouted. With her voice, a stream of sword qi, as vigorous as purple clouds, broke through the air and slashed thousands of meters away. I got up in the morning and hurried to get home at 6 o'clock. I didn't eat anything and just wrote a chapter in a hurry. I'm really tired and hungry. I'll update one more chapter tonight. I'll update normally tomorrow. Chapter 1772. The sword qi was vigorous like the purple clouds. A figure suddenly appeared in the void in the distance and clapped his palm. Bang! The sword qi exploded inch by inch. But the figure didn't feel good either. He stepped back a few steps in the void, and his expression changed. It was a young man in a gray robe, with a pair of white eyebrows and sharp eyes. What a ruthless witch! "Do you know who I am?" the young man in a gray robe said in a deep voice. Whoosh! Before his voice died away, Ah Hu had already attacked again. Her figure was ethereal, and she took out a crystal purple flying sword and attacked violently. The voice of the young man in a gray robe stopped abruptly. A blood-colored spear appeared in his palm, and he swept and killed. His combat power was also extremely strong. In a flash, he had fought with Ah Hu dozens of times. It should be known that Ah Hu was not an ordinary person. She could restrain Wei Zia and Kuan Jilin, the 2 great sages. But now, she couldn't defeat the young man in a gray robe. There was no doubt that this was also a ruthless character who was far more powerful than his peers. At least he was ranked on the great sage list. Clang! The snow-white broken blade flashed in the void and suddenly swept over. Its sharpness made the world dim. It was Lin Sun who attacked. Puff! Caught off guard, the young man in a gray robe was scratched by the edge of the broken blade. His shoulder blade was cut, and his arm was almost cut off. The young man in a gray robe let out a muffled groan. Finally, he gritted his teeth, and a blood-colored jade talisman appeared in his palm. He suddenly crushed it, and his figure disappeared out of thin air at an incredible speed. Infinite Blood Escape Talisman. This is the unique ancient treasure of the Heavenly Ghost Fighting Clan, one of the top 10 fighting clans. It's mysterious and priceless. Ah Hu recognized it, and her clear eyes flashed. In this way, the guy just now must be a pure-blood descendant of the Heavenly Ghost Fighting Clan. As she said, she frowned, "Brother Lin, there may be a lot of trouble in the next period of time. There is a lot of treasure refining Tao hidden in this ravine. It's like a coveted treasure land. After that guy escaped just now, the news is bound to spread." Lin Sun's eyes were like a dark abyss with a frightening luster. Let's see if they have the ability to seize the opportunity here. Following that, the 2 of them continued to guard this strange ravine, concentrating on absorbing the treasure refining Dao Qi. However, both of them knew that it wouldn't be long before this place became a place of turmoil. Damn it! I actually wasted a blood escape talisman. Far away, the gray-robed youth's face was ashen and hideous. His heart was bleeding. The infinite blood escape talisman was extremely precious and rare. It was regarded as a life-saving technique by him, but he did not expect that he would waste it just at the outskirts of the Kunlun ruins. "Yen Xiao, you're actually injured?" There were several other people in this area, and all of them had terrifying auras that far surpassed ordinary cultivators. The one who spoke was a green-haired woman with scarlet lips and a coquettish and charming face. She looked at the gray-robed youth with blood dripping from his shoulder and was somewhat surprised. Yan Xiu's strength was obvious to all of them. On the starry sky ancient path, he could be considered a ferocious and iron-blooded figure. He was from the Heaven Ghoul fighting clan and controlled a special innate power. He had already been ranked in the top 100 of the Starry Sky Great Saints many years ago. The gray-robed youth called Yan Xiu took a deep breath and said with a gloomy expression, "It's that Lin Sun. The rumors are true. His combat strength is indeed very strong. In a one-on-one battle, unless I use my trump card, even I'm not confident in defeating him." The coquettish green-haired woman and the others were shocked. "However, I already know what they're doing. I believe you'll definitely be very interested." Suddenly, Yan Xiu's tone changed, and a strange light appeared in his eyes. He told them about the strange ravine that he'd seen. "What? There's actually such a thing? There's a lot of treasure refining Dao Qi hidden there?" Then Lin Sun's luck is too good. For a moment, everyone was tempted. They knew the magical effects of treasure refining Dao Qi very well. A ravine with a lot of treasure refining Dao Qi was like a natural treasure house, and it was enough to make anyone covet it. The coquettish green-haired woman said, "Let's kill that shameless couple together. As long as we can control that ravine, the treasure refining Dao Qi will also be ours." "No, even if we can kill Lin Sun and that woman, we'll have to pay a great price." Yan Xiu shook his head and refused the proposal. He had fought with Lin Sun and Hu. Although the time was short, it made him feel horrified and terrified. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have decisively used a priceless blood escape talisman to escape without a trace. "Yan Xiu, what do you think we should do?" someone asked. The people present were all experts who had allied with Yan Xiu. They came from different forces, and each of them had roughly the same combat strength as Yan Xiu. "Drive the tiger to swallow the wolf." Yan Xiu gently spat out these words. Everyone's eyes flickered, and they immediately understood. As long as the news about that mysterious ravine spread, it would definitely attract many experts who were not afraid of death. "What? There's a ravine in the depths of the desert that contains a lot of treasure refining Dao Qi? Quick, let's go take a look." "The news is true. Someone has seen it with his own eyes. Let's go quickly." In the treasure refining ground, along with Yan Xiu and the others adding fuel to the fire, the news about the Black Mist Ravine spread quickly. For a time, it attracted the attention of countless experts, and they all rushed over. Among them, there was no lack of direct descendants from ancient orthodoxies, as well as some famous geniuses and fairies. It should be known that the treasure refining ground seemed to be extremely vast, but the amount of treasure refining Dao Qi was limited. There were too many wolves and not enough meat. Who wouldn't be tempted when they heard that such a treasure land had appeared? Thus, a storm was formed. As the manipulators behind the scenes, Yan Xiu and the others had been secretly paying attention to the situation. When they noticed this scene, they couldn't help but laugh. The plan to drive the tiger to swallow the wolf was about to succeed. Next, it would depend on who could pull the chestnut out of the fire and pluck the peach. At the side of the Black Mist Ravine, accompanied by a wave of cheerful and excited clear howls, the surface of the broken blade condensed once more into a natal mark that was like a golden dragon. This was the 7th natal mark that the broken blade had condensed. At this moment 2 days had passed since he defeated Yan Xiu. Unfortunately, this ravine is filled with terrifying energy. Otherwise, if we were able to sneak into it, then relying on Brother Lin's profound Dao flames would be sufficient to obtain even greater benefits. Hu sighed with emotion. Lin Sun smiled, and he was just about to say something when a wisp of killing intent suddenly flashed in his eyes. "Quickly! We've found it! It's right here!" At practically the exact same moment, A loud shout that was filled with excitement resounded from extremely far away. A group of cultivators had appeared. There were both men and women, and there were over 10 of them. They were riding gorgeous streaks of light as they approached menacingly. They really have come. A wisp of coldness flashed in Ahu's beautiful eyes. Isn't that Lin Sun? They've actually arrived in advance. Looks like they've already obtained a great deal of benefit. At the same time, those cultivators noticed Lin Sun and Ahu as well, and a wisp of vigilance and hostility couldn't help but suffuse their expressions. I'll give all of you a chance. Leave now and you can live. Otherwise, you'll probably be unable to leave again. Lin Sun's voice was indifferent, yet it revealed a wisp of bone-piercing coldness. Just these words alone caused all those cultivators to frown and feel extremely displeased. Fortuitous encounters have no owner, and only the fated obtain them. Who do you think you are to actually intend to occupy such a precious place? Aren't you a little too arrogant? Do you really think you can run wild just because you killed Yan Chunjun? Everyone, this bastard has gone mad. Let's attack together and kill him. Numerous shouts resounded while these cultivators surged with killing intent. If they were alone, then they naturally wouldn't have the courage to confront Lin Sun. But now they had the advantage in numbers, and there was no lack of formidable and ruthless figures amongst them. So, how could they be willing to give up just like that? That depends on whether all of you have the life to fight for this fortuitous encounter. Amidst his low and deep voice, Lin Sun attacked without the slightest hesitation. His figure moved while a clear howl resounded, and then the broken blade whistled out. Pooh! A cold light flashed as a cultivator's head was chopped off, and his body and soul were annihilated. The sudden and bloody scene of death caused the expressions of all those cultivators to turn pale, and they attacked instinctively. Rumble! The glow of treasures interweaved in the sky while Taoist techniques poured down, and the heavens and the earth shook. Lin Sun's expression was cold while his body flowed with a brilliant glow of the Tao, causing him to seem ethereal like an immortal and mighty like a fiend god. He controlled the broken blade to attack the surroundings. Pooh! 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 If these cultivators were in the outside world, then perhaps they could be considered as extraordinary figures, and every single one of them possessed extraordinary combat strength. But before Lin Sun's slaughter, they were utterly insufficient. They were like pieces of paper that were slaughtered one after another, causing a rain of blood to spray while shrill cries resounded. A strange expression couldn't help but appear in Lin Sun's eyes. Since the transformation of the broken blade until now, it had merely condensed 7 natal treasures, yet its might was completely different from before. Ordinary divine treasures were easily slashed, crushed, and blasted apart by it. Even Lin Sun was surprised by its unparalleled ferocious sharpness. He was unable to imagine how formidable the broken blades would be once it condensed 10 innate treasured markings, and its appearance underwent a complete transformation. Men die for wealth just like birds die for food. How stupid! Who sighed softly and launched an attack as well. A bright purple crystalline flying sword flashed up, whistled through the sky, and slaughtered the cultivators. Its sword chi was like the mighty violet sky that destroyed the universe. In almost a short period of over 10 breaths, this group of cultivators was annihilated without a single survivor. A rain of blood sprayed all over the sky, and they didn't even have the time to flee. Clang! Lin Sun put away the broken blade, and his clothes were neat and undamaged. This is what it means to bring disaster upon oneself. Ahu commented. Lin Sun sighed softly and said, "This is just the first batch. I'm afraid there will be more and more reckless moths rushing over." In fact, it was indeed so. In less than an hour, another group of cultivators rushed over. It was a group of descendants from famous sects, and each of them had an extraordinary bearing. As soon as they arrived, they shouted at Lin Sun and Hu to leave as soon as possible, or they would bear the consequences. Chapter 1774. On the starry sky ancient path, just the identity of this group of heirs from the great sex was even sufficient to make some old freaks feel fearful and refrain from attacking for fear of harming the innocent. As the saying went, if you beat a dog, look at its master. Offending the descendants of these big sects would even draw out the old monsters in the sects, which was the most frightening thing. Therefore, when they recognized Lin Sun's identity, the second group of practitioners showed no fear and behaved very tough. Seeing this, Lin Sun just replied lightly, Yen Chunjun was as arrogant as you, but he died. Do you want to repeat the same mistake? It was also this sentence that made these practitioners change their expressions and become uncertain. Only then did they realize that on the starry sky ancient path, perhaps they could rely on their identity to oppress some tough people. But obviously, Lin Sun, who had killed Yen Chunjun, was not among them. Then, they decided to take a step back, saying that it was okay for Lin Sun not to leave, but they would not retreat. The implication was that they would share the opportunities in the Black Mist Gully together. Yes, this was their concession. They thought it was sincere enough. But Lin Sun answered them with a concise word, get lost. It was merely a single word, yet coupled with Lin Sun's expressionless expression, it caused all these cultivators to explode with rage. Lin Sun is simply too arrogant. He actually asked us to fuck off. What made these practitioners even more dumbfounded was that Lin Sun directly took action. This was no longer a matter of politeness. It was obvious that Lin Sun was overbearing to the point of being unscrupulous. He didn't take them and the sects behind them seriously at all. Without hesitation, they also took action together. Boom! The battle broke out, but the result was no suspense. These descendants from the big sects on the starry sky ancient path were suppressed and killed by Lin Sun without mercy. When Lin Sun entered the ancient desolation for the first time, when had he ever bowed to any big sect or sect? It was like this in the past, today, and in the future. They are not stupid. They are just blinded by greed, and they never know your past and real combat strength. Otherwise, they would never dare to provoke you like this. Ahu said, in fact, there are too few people like you in this world. Who in the Kunlun ruins doesn't know that Yen Chunjun is the successor of the Universe Tao Court? Anyone who wishes to deal with him would have to consider the consequences. In the end, most would choose to retreat in the face of difficulties, but you don't care at all. It's not that I don't care. It's just that this is how I've been cultivating till now. Lin Sun said casually, if one day I have to endure, bow my head, and choose fear and retreat just because of the origin, background, and identity of the opponent, I will no longer be me. If I can't beat him, I can run, I can hide, and I won't be afraid of losing face. But if I can beat him, I will never let myself down. Of course, I also know that beating up the young will definitely provoke the old. But it doesn't matter, sooner or later, I will also step on that bunch of old people. Ahu's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She knew that Lin Sun was not just saying it, he was also doing it. Just like in the ancient Desolation realm, Lin Sun was unbridled and had enemies everywhere. Many orthodoxies regarded him as a thorn in their flesh. But now, in the vast ancient Desolation realm, who dared to look down on Lin Sun? Even those old monsters had to bow their heads. Why? Because Lin Sun now stood at the peak of the Saint realm in the ancient Desolation realm. The power and foundation he possessed were enough to make any orthodoxy fear him. How powerful the Golden Crow bloodline was. But in the end, it was defeated by Lin Sun. Ahu said with a smile, that's why I said that you are the only one in the world who is not afraid of anything. That's why the descendants of some famous sects are so stupid. Because in their subconsciousness, the strength of identity and background is also a kind of deterrent, which is enough to deter some opponents whose background and identity are not as good as theirs. But unfortunately, they met you, who doesn't play according to common sense. They can only blame their bad luck. Lin Sun couldn't help laughing. Are you praising me or insulting me? Ahu chuckled and said, I'm just explaining why those cultivators look so stupid. In the following period of time, groups of cultivators appeared one after another. There were 5 or 6 at least, and more than 10 at most. Among them, there were many smart ones. When they saw Lin Sun and Ahu, they were all afraid and didn't approach them rashly. But they didn't really leave either. There were also some strong practitioners who didn't believe it and thought they were from extraordinary backgrounds. But without exception, they were all killed by Lin Sun. Something is wrong. In less than a day, there are too many people here. Could it be that the guy from the heavenly ghost-fighting clan is behind this? Ahu frowned. At this time, how could she not understand that the news not only leaked, but also spread very fast, which attracted so many strong practitioners? Driving the tiger to swallow the wolf? Lin Sun's black eyes flickered. I'm afraid so. That guy can't beat us, but he refuses to give up the opportunity here. Of course, he has to take some strategies. Ahu said, if some difficult people appear and they take the lead, we will inevitably become the public enemy in everyone's eyes. That will be troublesome. Then we will give up this place. Lin Sun said without hesitation. Give up? Ahu was stunned. Of course I'm not really giving it to you. Lin Sun smiled, but the meaning was hard to understand. In an area far away from the Black Mist Ravine, Yen Xiao, the enchanting green-haired woman and others were hiding in the dark. They watched as group after group of cultivators appeared, and they surged towards the Black Mist Gorge like tidewater. They also saw some practitioners return in frustration. How can that shameless couple be so powerful? So many strong practitioners go there, but still can't bite them? Someone was surprised and doubtful. They can kill Yen Chunjun and force me to retreat. Of course, they are not ordinary people. Yen Xiao was very calm, but now there are many strong practitioners gathered near that ravine. The situation has begun to become more and more unfavorable for Lin Sun. Everyone's eyes lit up. Under the situation of being surrounded by wolves, how could Lin Sun not feel the pressure no matter how strong he was? Hey! Suddenly, Yen Xiao exclaimed. In the distant void, a golden sword rainbow flashed across the sky, and a group of figures stood on the golden sword rainbow. The leader was a black-clothed young man with a cold and resolute expression. His palm was placed on the sword sheath at his waist, and his bearing was as dignified as a mountain. Swish! The black-clothed young man seemed to have noticed it and glanced at the place where Yen Xiao was hiding. It was just a pair of eyes, but it was like the sharpest sword edge in the world, fierce, terrifying, and extremely frightening. Yen Xiao's companions felt a chill in their hearts. Even Yen Xiao's body tightened slightly. Fortunately, the black-clothed young man quickly withdrew his gaze and disappeared into the horizon with the group of people around him. Gu Songxin. This guy actually came. Yen Xiao's heart was stirred. He recognized this person. He came from the Heaven and Earth Taoism court, and he was a peerless sword practitioner who was famous in the starry sky as early as 500 years ago. Every 100 years, the starry sky sage list would be re-ranked. However, Gu Songxian's ranking would always be in the top 100 in every ranking. Especially the last ranking, Gu Songxin was ranked 53rd. This was enough to shock the world. It should be known that the higher the ranking was, the more fierce and cruel the competition would be. The slightest difference in strength could lead to a completely different ranking. Gu Songxin reached the peak of the Great Sage Realm 500 years ago, and after 500 years, his ranking could be improved every time, which was very terrifying. It's him. The others also came to a sudden realization, all of them fearful. Gu Songxin may be able to easily suppress Lin Sun and that woman. But with Gu Songxin here, who dares to compete with him for the opportunity? Someone was worried. Although Gu Songxin is strong, Lin Sun is not weak either. Don't forget that this guy is a ruthless person who killed Yen Chunjun. I hope that he can fight with Gu Songxin and both of them will be injured, so that we can benefit from it. Yan Xiu's eyes were filled with coldness. Later, let's act together, get close and wait for the right opportunity. Beside the black mist gully, Lin Sun sensed something and suddenly looked into the distance. A golden sword rainbow pierced through the sky and spread out in this direction. Gu Zongxin and the others stood on it like a group of immortals descending to the mortal world. Countless powerhouses had already gathered in the nearby area. When they saw Gu Zongxin, all of their expressions changed and they were extremely restless. Black-robed sword Saint Gu Zongxin. He actually came to Kunlun ruins? Why haven't I heard anything about him before? Many exclamations sounded nearby. A man's reputation was like a tree's shadow. When Gu Zongxin and his group arrived, they immediately became the focus of attention. No one expected that a sword genius like him, who had long since shaken the ancient path of the starry sky and was regarded as the black-robed sword saint, would actually come as well. Moreover, he had brought a group of successors of the Universe Tao court with him. At the same time, Lin Sun also found out about Gu Zongxin's identity from Ah Hu. He could not help but raise his brows, and then he muttered to himself. It's been 500 years, yet he's still at the peak of the Great Sage stage. Is he trying to stay on the Great Sage leaderboard? Or perhaps he's long since lost the chance to advance to the Saint King stage. However, no matter which it was, in Lin Sun's opinion, the reputation and battle prowess that he had spent 500 years to build could not be considered truly amazing. One had to know that Lin Sun had cultivated for far less than 100 years. With such a comparison, he would naturally subconsciously think that Gu Zongxin's cultivation time was insufficient. However, what Lin Sun did not know was that to be able to firmly occupy the top 100 of the Great Sage leaderboard in 500 years, he could already be considered an unparalleled genius among the powerhouses on the ancient path of the starry sky. After all, this was the cultivation of the peak of the Great Sage stage. Most of the older generation in the world could not even touch the threshold of this realm in their entire lives. It could only be said that Lin Sun did not understand the matters of the ancient path of the starry sky, and he was using himself as a comparison, so it was normal for him to understand it this way. Chapter 1775. Gu Zongxin, dressed in a black robe, stood in the void with a cold and hard face, and put his palm on the hilt of the sword at his waist. His power was as great as a mountain. Did you kill Yan Chunjun? Gu Zongxin's voice was as hard and cold as a rock. His words shocked all the people present. Only then did they realize that Gu Zongxin and his companions might also be attracted by the Black Gully, but more importantly, their purpose was to avenge Yan Chunjun. Yes. Lin Sun nodded casually and calmly. Gu Zongxin gave him a feeling similar to Wen Qingxue, the successor of Panwu Taoist court, who was far stronger than Wei Zia and Kuan Jilin. Clang! Above Gu Zongxin's heart, a huge sword appeared. It was as black as ink, simple and blunt, and was engraved with two simple Taoist characters, reappear. The nearby void collapsed silently, as if it could not bear the weight of this sword. In this area, a terrifying and boundless killing qi also spread from Gu Zongxin's body. Many people held their breath and changed their faces in horror. What a terrible power! At this moment, Gu Zongfeng was like the master of the sword, controlling the world. Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed slightly, his clothes fluttered and his qi roared. For a time, the world was filled with two completely different horrible powers, confronting each other. The void was rolling violently like a surging river. The hearts of many people constricted, and they retreated in unison as they were deeply afraid of being affected by the battle that was about to unfold. Those who kill the core descendants of Universe Taoist court should be killed. Gu Zongxin said coldly. Whoosh! As his voice fell, the sword qi in the sky crisscrossed, whistling and steaming. All of them were wrapped in the huge sword named Reappear and chopped out. Wind and snow were moving in all directions, and I was the king of the universe. This sword was vast and immeasurable. But to everyone's surprise, at this moment, Lin Sun withdrew and moved away with Ah Hu. Their speed was so fast that it was beyond the reaction of all the people present. Whoosh! The huge sword stopped in the air, and the sword qi all over the sky condensed. However, Gu Zongxin was stunned. He hadn't expected that such an opponent would actually flee so decisively. He didn't even say a word before leaving. Beside him, the descendants of the Qianquan court were also stunned. As far as they knew, Lin Sun was a reckless and daring character who didn't even take Yan Chunjun seriously. Who would have thought that before the battle even began, the other party would flee? All the people present were also dumbfounded. What was going on? Wasn't Lin Sun very unscrupulous and lawless before? How did he escape just like that? Even Yan Xiu and the others, who were secretly watching this scene, were dumbfounded. This guy is admitting defeat just like that? Originally, they planned to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight and reap the benefits. But Lin's action made them confused. Previously, it was a situation of driving the tiger to swallow the wolf. But now, the wolf had fled and the tiger had stayed. Bah! Shameless! I thought Lin Sun was a great man, but it turns out that he is just a coward who bullies the weak and fears the strong. A descendant of the Qianquan court spoke in disdain. Many people silently criticized him in disdain. He didn't even have the courage to fight. Lin Sun wasn't shockingly courageous. He was clearly as timid as a mouse. Senior Brother Gu, should we chase after him? Someone asked. Gu Zongxin's eyes were steaming with divine light. In the end, he shook his head. The opportunity has passed. Right now. It's more important to collect the treasure refinement Dao Qi in this ravine. As long as that brat is still in the Kunlun ruins, we'll have a chance to kill him sooner or later. Everyone nodded. Seeing this scene, many people wailed in their hearts. Lin Sun's strength was already a headache for them. Now, with Gu Zongxin's arrival, this treasure land was directly occupied. Who would dare to challenge their Qianquan court? The faces of Yan Xiu and the others in the dark darkened as well. They were so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. A meticulously prepared plan had gone down the drain just like that. Yan Xiu, what should we do? The bewitching green-haired woman was anxious and asked via voice transmission. What else can we do? Of course we have to wait for an opportunity. Yan Xiu took a deep breath and said with a gloomy expression, the higher the quality of the treasure refinement Dao Qi, the more difficult it is to subdue. When Gu Zongxin is flustered, it'll be the moment we take the risk. But at that moment Gu Zongxian coldly said, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. If anyone wants to take advantage of the situation, first ask yourself if you can block my sword. It was both a warning and a thinly veiled threat. Many people were already terrified and wanted to retreat, but there were also people whose eyes flickered and remained unmoved. For example, Yan Xiu and the others, they naturally wouldn't be scared off by a single sentence. Gu Zongxin didn't say anything else and looked at the ravine filled with black mist. As time passed, a strand of treasure refinement Dao Qi emerged from the depths of the black mist and transformed into a golden bird. It soared in the depths of the ravine with a clear cry, and it was a dazzling divine steed. Many people's eyes lit up. Yan Xiu and the others felt their mouths go dry. This treasure refinement Dao Qi was too precious, and its value was immeasurable. It was extremely tempting. On the other hand, the descendants of the Universe Taoist court became nervous. Countless gazes were staring at them from all directions, and it made them feel like there was a sword on their backs. Only Gu Zongxin's expression was as cold as before, and he remained unmoved. Lin Sun could control this place before, and so could he. If anyone dared to interfere, he wouldn't mind killing them with the sword in his hand. Before long, Gu Zongxin found an opportunity and attacked without hesitation. He stretched out his palm and grabbed towards the golden bird in the depths of the ravine. Boom! Numerous ghostly figures charged out from the black mist, and their killing intent surged into the sky. It was exactly the same as what Lin Sun had encountered before. Gu Tsang remained calm in the face of such changes. His giant sword swept out horizontally and crushed the ghostly figures like crushing dry weeds. After that, a faint golden divine flame flashed out, and with a bang, it actually destroyed the power of Gu Tsangxin's palm and incinerated it into nothingness. Gu Tsangxin grunted coldly and let out a long howl. His palm and fingers glowed, and an expanse of light instantly surged into appearance and enveloped the faint golden divine flame. Bang! 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 However, unexpectedly, the faint golden divine flame was actually extremely strong, and it destroyed his attack once more. Suppress! A wisp of a serious expression appeared between Gu Tsangxin's brows, and he withdrew a green bottle. A ray of green light shot out from the opening of the bottle and swept out. He attacked once more, and he grabbed towards the golden bird. However, right at this moment, along with a rumbling sound, a bright silver net suddenly descended from the sky, and it enveloped the golden bird before Gu Tsangxin could. The green-haired woman seized this opportunity to attack. Gu Tsangxin was restrained by the faint golden divine flame, and this was undoubtedly a superb opportunity to seize the treasure refinement Dao Qi. Gu Tsangxin revealed a wisp of ridicule when facing this unexpected event, and he seemed to have expected this. He lightly flicked his finger. Clang! A deep sword howl resounded as the enormous sword descended once more, and it suddenly crushed through space as it whistled through the air. It was so swift and ferocious that it was like a torrent or a bolt of lightning flashing through the sky. Swish! The bright silver net instantly exploded into pieces, and it transformed inch by inch into powder. The green-haired woman's expression changed, and she didn't hesitate to dodge. However, while the enormous sword seemed to be boundlessly heavy, it was even swifter than a bolt of lightning. It flashed lightly, and then a bang resounded as the green-haired woman's body was pierced through, causing her flesh to explode. This scene had occurred so quickly that Yan Xiu wasn't even able to assist her in time, and he couldn't help but feel terrified when he saw the green-haired woman being killed. Gu Tsangxin wasn't seizing the treasure refinement Dao Qi at all. He'd clearly been accumulating strength since a long time ago, and he'd dug a trap, and anyone who couldn't restrain themselves from charging out would suffer a thunderous strike from him. Being unable to control the greed in one's heart from the slightest temptation is no different than courting death. Gu Tsangxin spoke coldly. The surroundings were deathly silent, and everyone was shocked by this. This was a show of strength to warn the others. Gu Tsangxin felt at ease when he saw this, and he started to concentrate on seizing the treasure refinement Dao Qi. Whoosh! But at this moment, something strange happened. A broken blade that was as white as snow burst forth. In an instant, Gu Tsangxin's body suddenly stiffened, and he sensed the danger. Without hesitation, he controlled the giant sword to confront the incoming attack with all his strength. Boom! An earth-shattering collision sounded. Gu Tsangxin's body shook slightly, and a terrifying light burst out of his eyes. "It's you. Turns out that your escape was just a bluff." His cold voice resounded through the sky. Only then did the people present notice that Lin Sun's figure had appeared in the void in the distance again. Lin Sun smiled slightly. "It's not a good feeling to be the target of public criticism. I just changed the situation with you." Yes, now Gu Tsangxin was the focus of everyone's attention. This time, let's see if you can escape alive. Gu Tsangxin's killing intent was revealed. He stepped into the air, abandoned the treasure refinement Dao Qi, and rushed to Lin Sun. However, Lin Sun escaped again, and he didn't want to confront him at all. Gu Tsangxin originally intended to chase Lin Sun, but soon his face changed, and he turned back. But it was a step too late. In the black mist of the ravine, a wisp of colorful ribbon swept away the golden bird at an incredible speed. The other end of the colorful ribbon was in the palm of who had appeared in the field at some time, luring the tiger away from the mountain, and taking chestnuts from the fire. Seeing this, Gu Sangshin's face suddenly became extremely cold, and he rushed to Hu without hesitation. But Hu just smiled and didn't want to entangle with him at all. Her figure fluttered, and she disappeared in the void. This series of actions happened in a flash. From Lin Sun's attack to Hu seizing the opportunity to seize the treasure refinement Dao Qi, it was almost done in one go. Many practitioners were dazzled by the scene before they could react. On the other hand, Yan Xiu and the others were surprised and bewildered as well. They'd similarly never imagined that Lin Sun who'd fled would actually turn back. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. But the enchanting green-haired woman, who acted as the aureole, was killed on the spot by Gu Sangshin. But who would have thought that after the aureole, there would be two cunning foxes? They toyed with the mantis that was supposed to win and took away the treasure refinement Dao Qi, the cicada. The change in the situation caused everyone present to be flabbergasted. Damn it! Gu Sangshin's face was as gloomy as water, and he felt a little embarrassed. It was the first time that he had been played like this since he started cultivating. Chapter 1777. There was dead silence. Many people sighed inwardly. Lin Sun was not a coward at all. Obviously, he was extremely bold. The reason why he retreated before was actually to set Gu Sangshin up and roast him on the fire, making him the target of public criticism. Lin Sun, on the other hand, had been lurking in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to act. In the end, he had successfully obtained the excellent treasure refining Taoist Qi from Gu Sangshin. Yan Xiu and the others looked extremely gloomy. The enchanting green-haired woman had been killed by Gu Sangshin, but she had also been used by Lin Sun. Lin Sun had taken advantage of Gu Sangshin and taken away a peach. This made them grit their teeth in hatred. They felt that all their previous efforts had been for Lin Sun. It was too hateful. A bunch of trash. Gu Sangshin was also filled with hatred. It was not only because he had been led by the nose by Lin Sun, but also because of the incompetence of his companions. Seeing Lin Sun and the woman appear, none of his companions had reacted. How stupid and incompetent were they! The descendants of the Universe Court could not help but feel ashamed and angry. They lowered their heads and did not dare to face Gu Sangshin's murderous eyes. In fact, they were also full of grievances. Who would have thought that Lin Sun would come back and attack them? Who would have thought that they would be so daring? At the beginning, they had despised Lin Sun for being a coward and thought that he did not live up to his name. The descendants of the Universe Court felt a burning pain on their faces. It felt like they had been slapped hard in the face. This Lin Sun had gone too far. Next, all of you keep a close eye on him. Kill whoever dares to come close. Gu Sangshin's expression was cold. Yes. The descendants of the Universe Court all nodded in agreement. It's over. Gu Sangshin is completely enraged. It will be very difficult to pull the chestnut out of the fire. Yan Xiu felt bitter in his heart. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded between heaven and earth. Ha, Gu Sangshin, you are so arrogant and overbearing. Do you really think that this treasure refining place is the territory of the Universe Court? The temperature between heaven and earth dropped abruptly, and a bone-piercing chill filled the air, causing everyone present to shiver. Then, the crowd saw a sickly-looking man with unusually fair skin walking over from afar. His hair was as white as snow, and it hung down to his waist. His face was as handsome as a demon, and when he walked, it was as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in his own courtyard. Hua Xingli. He was a core descendant of the demon court, an extremely legendary peerless great sage, a ruthless demon who killed without batting an eye, and whose hands were stained with blood. The opponents who died in his hands were all famous and dazzling figures. Hua Xingli, it's you. Gu Zong Xian's pupils constricted, and he said coldly, I heard that you entered the Tao through love and hatred and created the flower burial scripture, which earned you the recognition of a demon emperor in the demon court. He said that you would be able to become a great emperor within 1,000 years. I really want to see if you really have such a foundation and ability. He didn't conceal his killing intent and battle intent in the slightest. He was like a towering mountain, and his might was like a sword that could pierce through the heavens, causing the winds and clouds in this world to be thrown into disorder. Get ready, your chance is here. Witnessing this scene, Yan Xiu, who was originally feeling bitter, instantly became excited. He once again saw the hope of reaping the benefit. I didn't think that you would know so much about me. Hua Xingli had a look of surprise on his face. Then, he smiled and said, Unfortunately, I'm not interested in knowing about you at all. He scanned the surroundings and said, Are you sure you want to fight here? Guzong Xian's expression was cold. Then let's see if you will back off. A smile appeared on Hua Xingli's pale and handsome face as he said, I've never lacked the awareness to retreat in the face of danger, but you alone are not enough to make me shrink back. As he spoke, he took a step forward. The world suddenly became hot and dark. The surrounding air and light seemed to have been sucked out, and with Hua Xingli at the center, a strange black light screen collapsed. His white hair fluttered in the wind, and there was a smile on his lips. However, in the eyes of the people around him, he was like an ancient demon lord standing in the darkness, with great majesty that controlled life and death. Many people's blood almost froze. Their bodies trembled as they retreated in shock. They didn't dare to approach this area at all. They couldn't hold on any longer. Even Yan Xiu and the others felt a chill in their hearts. This Hua Xingli from the demon court had only risen to prominence less than 100 years ago, yet he was already this terrifying? Guzong Xian's eyes flickered, and the aura around him rumbled like a tidal wave. He also felt the pressure and realized that Hua Xingli was not ordinary. He took a deep breath, and his eyes were resolute as he said, Then with my sword I will stop you. Clang! The giant sword called Heavy Descent slashed out from the void with the power to crush mountains and rivers. The condensed sword intent caused the world to change color. Hua Xingli responded with an "oh" and waved his sleeve. Pink petals filled the sky, and every petal was soft and crystal clear, beautiful and dreamy. Chi-chi! A flower petal stuck onto the enormous sword that was slashing towards him. The flower petal seemed to be delicate, yet it transformed into strands of strange laws that caused the attack of the enormous sword to suddenly slow down. When the sky full of petals swept over, Guzong Xian's eyes narrowed, and he didn't hesitate to use his full strength. The giant sword was like a dragon coming out of the abyss, twisting fiercely. Rumble! The sky full of petals rained down. Sword light and sword intent intertwined, causing the world to shake violently. Hua Xingli stepped forward again with a leisurely expression. But as he stepped forward, countless pink petals turned into a storm that covered the sky and covered the earth. They were clearly soft and crystal-clear petals, but they were imprinted with mysterious and unfathomable laws. They were filled with destructive power that could make even ghosts and gods tremble. Guzong Xian's brows narrowed, and he slashed with his sword with great power. His sword intent was majestic, and it was as if he was dragging an ancient divine mountain. For a moment, the world shook, and the terrifying light of the Tao drowned the area. Yan Xiu and the others stiffened, and their faces were filled with shock. Too strong. Whether it was Guzong Xian or Hua Xingli, the means they displayed were all shocking. The confrontation between the two was like the sun competing for glory. No, it's too dangerous to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. Yan Xiu's heart was in turmoil. He judged that if he intervened at this time, not only would he have little chance to snatch the treasure refining Dao Qi, but he would also be targeted by both Guzong Xian and Hua Xingli. I can only wait for them to fight until both sides are injured. Yan Xiu made a judgment. He was very confident that in such a situation, let alone them, Even the others present would not dare to approach rashly. Swish! But at this moment, a figure appeared out of thin air and appeared near the black fog abyss. Like a ghost, he grabbed towards the black fog abyss. Yan Xiu was dumbfounded. Was this a slap to his face? Just as he made a judgment, someone who was not afraid of death rushed out. Lin Sun, it's you again! Guzong Xian shouted angrily. The descendants of Qiankuan Taoist court were also angry. Was this guy addicted to taking advantage of the situation? It's not good to be distracted when fighting with me, Hua Xingli said with a smile, and his offensive suddenly became much faster. Stupid, you and I fight, Lin Sun benefits, don't you understand? Guzong Xian shouted with a gloomy face. He wanted to split up to deal with Lin Sun, but he was entangled by Hua Xingli and could not get away at all, which made him angry. Well, it's not my thing, what does it have to do with me? Hua Xingli said casually. He just glanced at Lin Sun and ignored him. Guzong Xian was so angry that he laughed. Why do I feel that you are on the same side as this guy? Hua Xingli said disapprovingly. That only proves that you are blind and don't know my style of doing things. While talking, the two were still fighting fiercely. Kill. In the field, the descendants of Qiankuan Taoist court had already taken action and rushed up to surround Lin Sun. They were scolded by Guzong Xian because Lin Sun snatched food from the tiger's mouth. How dare they neglect him now? Boom. At this time, Lin Sun had already successfully grabbed a strand of treasure refining Taoist qi. Then his body suddenly stretched out like a big abyss moving the sky. He pushed back the surrounding descendants of Qiankuan Taoist court. In a flash, he escaped into the distance and said with a smile, "You two continue, I won't disturb you anymore." Guzong Xian's face was gloomy as he gritted his teeth. Hua Xingli laughed. When we meet next time, I really want to play with you. At that time, I won't let you go like this again. In the distance, Lin Sun's figure had already disappeared. No one knew if he heard it or not. Hua Xingli, you deserve to die. Guzong Xian had nowhere to vent his anger, so he pointed the spearhead at Hua Xingli. Boom! He attacked with all his strength, like an angry sword god. Hua Xingli smiled. From the beginning to the end, he looked calm and collected, but his attacks did not lose out in the slightest. The heroes in the field looked at each other. Lin Sun snatched food from the tiger's mouth twice and left safely twice. It was shocking, but also made people jealous and unhappy. Especially Yan Xiu and others, they were so depressed that they were about to vomit blood. Originally, they should have been the ones to pick the peaches, but now they became bystanders. They could only watch Lin Sun take advantage of the situation and snatch the opportunity. This feeling was too depressing. It's so lively. Suddenly, a hoarse voice with a trace of unique magnetism sounded. Then, there was the dull sound of thunderous footsteps between heaven and earth. Tang Su, dressed in a black robe, with a slender figure, carrying a huge and amazing saber, broke through the air. Boom! As soon as she arrived, she suddenly jumped up, picked up the bright and narrow saber, and slashed at Hua Xingli and Guzong Xian, who were fighting fiercely. Come on, let's fight to our heart's content. Tang Su's eyes were bright and she laughed out loud. Guzong Xian was so angry that he almost cursed out loud. This crazy woman came at all times. She was like a scourge. Hua Xingli, who had been calm from beginning to end, couldn't help twitching his lips. He also seemed to have a headache about Tang Su. You have fun, I'll go first. Hua Xingli was about to retreat, but he was slashed by Tang Su's saber. It was so overbearing that he had to fight back. Tang Su was aggressive and her fighting spirit was burning. Whoever doesn't fight is my grandson. Her domineering words resounded through the whole field, making all the spectators stunned. Chapter 1779. Boom. Tang Su didn't care what the others thought. As soon as she joined the battle, she seemed extremely arrogant. She held her saber and attacked with all her might, forcing Gu Zongxin and Hua Xingli to be unable to extricate themselves. The two of them couldn't help but feel annoyed. "Do you think I'm afraid of you, crazy woman? Kill!" An extremely intense and peerless battle erupted just like that because of Tang Su's arrival. In the distance, Lin Sun, who hadn't really left, couldn't help but laugh. This woman was really ferocious. "The commotion here is too great. I'm afraid more powerhouses will rush over in the next few days. Do you still want to stay?" Ah Hu asked. "Let's go." Lin Sun pondered for a moment before making a decision. Previously, he was able to snatch food from the tiger's mouth because he caught it off guard and had an opportunity to take advantage of. However, it was different now. Not only was Gu Zongxin present, but there were also Hua Xingli and Tang Su. It was undoubtedly unwise to snatch the fortuitous encounter at this time. Whoosh! Whoosh! Without hesitation, the two of them turned around and left. As for the battles around the ravine, neither Lin Sun nor Ah Hu could be bothered with them. Along the way, Lin Sun refined the treasure refinement Dao Qi he had seized and fused it into the broken blade, condensing another natal treasure pattern. In other words, the broken blade already had 8 natal treasure patterns, and it was only too short of another transformation. In less than 7 days, we'll have to leave this place and head to the depths of Kunlun ruins. At that time, the true danger will descend, Ah Hu said. Since ancient times, no one has been able to discover all the secrets of Kunlun ruins. We only know that the deeper we go, the more terrifying and strange it will be. It's filled with many taboo powers. I came here this time because I heard that there's an immortality peach tree in Kunlun ruins. The fruits on it are called the wonders of heaven and earth, the miraculous fruits of Tao. Consuming one is equivalent to 100 years of bitter cultivation. It's extremely miraculous. Lin Sun couldn't help but be surprised. There's really an immortality peach tree in this world. Ah Hu said, "Of course it's true. In the past, someone obtained one by chance. Legend has it that this immortality peach tree grows in the 5-colored wondrous soil and absorbs the energy of the heavens as nourishment. It's regarded as a true treasure tree of Tao." 5-colored wondrous soil. Lin Sun thought of something. He remembered what Wu Kei, the device spirit of the insignificant spiritual Bao, had said. There were 4 sacred trees in the world, namely Kunwu, Fusang, Jianmu, and Songwu. All of them were born from the origin of chaos and naturally contained the Taoist patterns belonging to the origin of chaos. According to rumor, so long as the sole origin roots of these 4 types of divine trees were gathered and nurtured with the chaotic life soil, 5-colored wondrous earth, clear muddy star soul sand, and primeval chi water, then a sapling of the chaotic quintessence tree would be born. At that time, nurturing the chaos origin tree sapling into his body would be immeasurably beneficial to his emperor's Tao cultivation. During the battles between the emperor realms, whoever was able to control a chaotic origin tree was equivalent to possessing the ability to comprehend the laws of chaos, and it was something that other emperor realms couldn't compare to. Although the emperor realm was still far away for Lin Sun, it would be better if he could collect some treasures he would need in the future. For example, Lin Sun now had the root of the Fusang tree. Wu Kei had once said that when he obtained the 5-colored wondrous earth, he could nurture the root of the Fusang tree in it. Sooner or later, a new soul origin root would be born. However, Lin Sun did not expect that there would be a treasure like the 5-colored wondrous earth in the Kunlun ruins that could even tempt an emperor realm cultivator. "When the time comes, I'll go with you." Lin Sun made a decision. Ah Hu smiled and said, "That couldn't be better." In the following time, the two of them continued to patrol the treasure refinement area, searching for the treasure refinement Dao Qi. 4 hours later, in the sky above a vast and majestic mountain and river, Lin Sun and Ah Hu, who were flying, suddenly stopped. At the same time, a cry of alarm sounded from afar. "It's too terrifying. What kind of treasure refinement Dao Qi is that? Why would it be accompanied by such terrifying Kunlun divine flames? The purple divine flames are like an ocean, transforming into thousands of ferocious birds that cover the sky and earth. Even the great saint of absolute land is no match for them. Up until now, at least 7 or 8 peak great saints have fallen. All of them have been incinerated into ashes, and their bodies and souls have been destroyed. Accompanied by clamorous voices, a group of figures teleported over from afar. All of them had panicked expressions, and they seemed to be extremely shocked. What happened? Lin Sun stopped one of them and asked. In next to no time, he found out the reason. There was an inverted mountain extremely far away from here, and there were numerous treasure refinement Dao Qi scattered on the inverted mountain. Amongst them, one of the treasure refinement Dao Qi was the most miraculous, and it had transformed into the phenomenon of the great Dao chapter. It was grand, divine, and could be said to be world-shocking. In the past few days, countless cultivators had headed over with the intention of subduing this treasure refinement Dao Qi, but all of them had failed without exception. Yet today, the treasure refinement Dao Qi that was like the great Dao chapter seemed to have been infuriated, and it gave rise to surging Kunlun divine flames that spread out from the inverted mountain. Those divine flames were magnificent purple in color, and they transformed into ferocious birds that filled the sky, causing all the nearby cultivators to flee in panic. Some unlucky fellows were incinerated on the spot. After they understood all of this, Lin Sun and Hu glanced at each other, and then they discussed briefly before deciding to continue forward. How miraculous would a strand of treasure refinement Dao Qi that could transform into the great Dao chapter be? After a short moment, the two of them finally saw the inverted mountain. Beneath the sky, a lofty mountain hung upside down with its bottom facing the sky, and its peak hung upside down. Its entire body was covered in dazzling and resplendent divine flames, and it illuminated the heavens and the earth to the point it seemed as if it was burning. At this moment, near the inverted mountain, a group of ferocious birds that were over 100 m in size were flapping their wings and charging madly. All of these ferocious birds were formed from violet divine flames. As they flapped their wings, divine flames surged out like a waterfall, and they incinerated the sky with a shocking impetus. Many cultivators covered their heads and fled in all directions, and there were even furious roars, sharp cries, and shrill cries resounding out incessantly. The scene was extremely chaotic. However, Lin Sun and Hu noticed that there were over 10 figures that weren't afraid at all, and they were fighting and approaching the inverted mountain with all their might. Look, isn't that Wen Qingxue from the Panwu Dao court? Hu suddenly pointed to the distance. There was a figure that was as beautiful as a fairy. Her black hair fluttered in the wind, and she held a silver jade scepter that flowed with a mysterious Dao diagram. As she moved forward, the mysterious Dao diagram glowed and resolved the attacks of the ferocious birds one by one. It seemed extremely miraculous. There's also Tao Jianxing from the Taowu battle clan. Almost at the same time, Lin Sun also noticed that Tao Jianxing, who had an arrogant and ferocious bearing, was moving forward with a blood-red flag in his hand. The blood-red flag was dazzling and scarlet, and it was branded with the diagram of Taowu trampling on the god. The fluctuation it emitted caused those ferocious birds to be completely suppressed. Besides Wen Qingxue and Tao Jianxing, there were some other experts in the field who were also approaching the inverted mountain. For example, Ling Kezi from the ancient Nanhua temple held a wooden fish and recited Buddhist scriptures. There were also some who held seals, bronze mirrors, or paintings on their heads. Those treasures were clearly extraordinary. They possessed miraculous effects that allowed them to withstand the impact of the purple divine flames. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Wen Qingxue and the others to resist the purple divine flame, which was powerful enough to kill the emptiness saint. Look, they are all here for the treasure refining Qi. Whose beautiful eyes lit up with a touch of amazement. Lin Sun also noticed that on the inverted mountain, there was a great way chapter shining brightly, and its light was like the way, illuminating the sky. Looking from a distance, it was particularly shocking. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, who would dare to believe that a treasure-refining chi could evolve such an incredible and grand vision? Lin Sun had also obtained a lot of precious treasure-refining chi before, but compared with the Great Way chapter, they were completely like fireflies, unable to compete with the sun and the moon. At this moment, Lin Sun was also tempted. How can I give such an opportunity to others? You stay here first. I'll be back soon, Lin Sun said quickly. He was not reckless, but he had many wonderful Tao flames, so he was not afraid of those Kunlun divine flames at all. Okay. Hu nodded in response. She also saw that this was a great opportunity. Whoosh! Lin Sun moved away without hiding his figure and rushed to the inverted mountain. Hey, it's Lin Sun from the ancient Desolation Realm. Is this guy tired of living? Is he still going to compete with Wen Qingxue for the opportunity? Soon, in the nearby area, many strong people noticed Lin Sun and recognized his identity, and they couldn't help but be surprised. At the same time, Wen Qingxue, Tao Jianxing and others also noticed Lin Sun. It was difficult not to attract attention with one more competitor. But soon, they withdrew their eyes and rushed forward with full concentration. Although they all had their own treasures to rely on, the purple divine flame was so overbearing and terrible that they suffered great interference when they moved forward. Now, there was still a long way to go before they could get close to the inverted mountain. Moreover, the further they went, the more terrible the impact they suffered, so they had no time to care about anything else but to rush forward with all their strength. Clatter! The void shook and the flames poured down. A fierce bird transformed from purple divine flame fell from the sky and pounced on Lin Sun. The terrible torrent of flames raged, with the power to burn the sky and destroy the earth. Buzz! Above Lin Sun's head, many wonderful Tao flames in the shape of a big cauldron emerged. It rotated and swallowed up all the attacks. The purple ferocious bird screamed, seeming to be aware of the danger. But before it could react, many wonderful Tao flames swept up like a big cauldron covering the sky, suppressing it in one fell swoop and taking it into the cauldron. This series of actions happened in the blink of an eye. From beginning to end, it was extremely easy. This, in the nearby area, the strong people who had planned to watch Lin Sun's show all widened their eyes in astonishment. When Qingxue, Tao Jianxing and others also noticed this scene, and their faces changed slightly. They were keenly aware that the cauldron-like Tao flames floating above Lin Sun's head was extraordinary. Chapter 1798. Lin Sun turned a blind eye to the uproar in the field, the surprised discussion, and the strange eyes cast on him. He continued to move forward. The inverted mountain was just 3 kilometers ahead, where the flames were steaming and the divine glow was flowing. It was extremely sacred. Among them, the Tao Qi that transformed into the chapter of Tao was the most conspicuous. But at the same time, the power of the purple flame that accompanied the Tao Qi was the most terrible and ferocious. This kind of flame was regarded as the soul-destroying wind flame, which was unique to the treasure refining place. Even a peerless great saint dared not fight against it without a life-saving secret treasure. Boom! Another purple bird broke through the air and rushed at Lin Sun aggressively. This time, when Qingxue, Tao Jianxing and others paid attention to it consciously. The flames were so fierce that even the void was melted. But before the purple bird approached Lin Sun, it was once again suppressed and swallowed by the Tao fire. It was as easy as crushing a moth to the fire. When Qingxue, Tao Jianxing and others changed their expressions, they dared to approach the inverted mountain at great risk with the secret treasures in their hands. Even so, they still suffered from the impact as they moved forward. They had to resist and resolve it with all their strength, which made their speed slow down. But Lin Sun didn't have such a situation at all. All the obstacles were wiped out easily, which was extremely eye-catching. Damn it! Someone cursed in his heart. He felt very unbalanced, and his eyes flashed with a fierce light. It's not good, someone looked solemn. And someone directly took action. He couldn't bear to be surpassed by Lin Sun. Boom! A blazing sword chi, which was hundreds of meters long, swept up, smashed the void, and chopped at Lin Sun. There was a burst of exclamation in the field. Lin Sun waved his sleeves, and a big abyss appeared and rotated violently. With a deafening roar, the sword chi collapsed inch by inch and was obliterated and swallowed. Lin Sun looked up and saw the appearance of the person who attacked. It was a blue-robed man with a thin body, silver skin, and a horn on his forehead. His eyes were cold and deep. When he saw Lin Sun easily resolve his sword chi, the horned man couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Many strong people watching in the distance couldn't help talking about it. This Lu Ong of the blood-scale battle race is too domineering, didn't you see? Lu Ong is right in front of Lin Sun. How could he be willing to be caught up by Lin Sun? There's a good show to watch. From their conversation, Lin Sun learned the identity of the man with a unicorn horn. Lu Ong was a descendant of the Blood Kylan battle clan, one of the 10 great battle clans. He was a peerless great saint ranked 77th on the Starry Sky Great Saint list. If you back out now, I can spare your life, Lu Ong said coldly. A blood-colored beast bone floated above his head, emitting a blinding blood-red light. It was fighting against a purple ferocious bird nearby. His words were extremely rude and threatened Lin Sun. When Qingxue, Tao Jianxing, and the others who were scattered in other directions were watching coldly from the sidelines. Of course, their movements were not slow, and they were still struggling to move forward. Clang! The broken blade swept out like a snow-white stream of light, piercing through the void. This was Lin's answer. Lu Eng's face darkened. With a move of his mind, a sword seal rushed out and evolved into a towering mountain. The mountain was covered with dense sword chi, and thousands of them swept out. Each of the dense and vast sword chi had the power to kill a saint. Boom! An earth-shattering collision sounded, and the thousands of sword chi torrents burst into pieces as soon as they touched the broken blade. Looking from a distance, the broken blade was so sharp that it was completely unstoppable. It cut a straight crack in the dense sword chi torrent. Finally, with a bang, the sword seal that evolved into a towering mountain was split by the broken blade, and a rain of light splashed like an avalanche. The terrifying and boundless impact made Lu Eng's body tremble, and his blood and chi surged all over. So strong. Lu Eng's face changed. But he didn't have a chance to react at all. Under the control of Lin Sun, the broken blade chopped again. The terrible and fierce edge flowed with the obscure Taoist light that made people's hearts palpitate. Lu Eng's hair stood on end, and he tried his best to resist it. The next moment, he was hit and flew out, with blood dripping from his lips. He was seriously injured. The most embarrassing thing was that a purple ferocious bird nearby took advantage of the situation to kill him. Lu Ong deserved to be a top figure on the Starry Sky Great Sage list. At this critical moment, he tried his best to teleport and escape from that area. His figure appeared thousands of meters away, and his face was extremely gloomy. Because after this blow, the advantage he had gained before was gone. If he wanted to get close to the inverted mountain, he had to act again. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Ridiculous. Lin Sun showed a sneer. When Qingxue, Tao Jianxing and others couldn't help but be shocked when they saw this. Lu Ong went for wool and came home shorn. No one had expected that he would be expelled. Similarly, the strength of Lin Sun's combat power also made them vigilant. And the strong people watching the battle in the distance were also trembling. Lin Sun was so strong that he deserved to be a peerless man who could kill Yan Chunjun. Little bastard, if I can't get the treasure refining chi, you can't either. Lu Ong gritted his teeth and roared. Boom! He attacked again. He took out a snow-white copper ring, which was shining brightly, and suddenly whistled towards Lin Sun in the distance. Lunar treasure ring. It was an extremely famous ancient treasure. It was said that this treasure ring weighed 108,000 kilograms, and a light blow could smash mountains and rivers, and break the universe. Clang! The broken blade flew up, and with just one blow, the lunar treasure ring was slashed away. A crack appeared on its surface, and it wailed endlessly. Luong was shocked and angry, and he couldn't believe his eyes. The lunar treasure ring was an ancient treasure with a great origin, but now it was damaged in one blow. "Don't force me to kill you," Lin Sun said coldly. As he spoke, he moved forward quickly. It was only a distance of thousands of meters. With the help of the wonderful fire of Tao, he moved forward easily and soon approached the inverted mountain. Lu Eng's face was gloomy, and he seemed to be about to attack again. Suddenly, a cold, killing intent enveloped his figure. He was shocked. Not far away, he saw a woman in a yellow dress staring at him coldly, with killing intent between her eyebrows. Looking at the nearby area, he didn't know how many strong people were distributed, and how many of them were planning to see him make a fool of himself. This made Luong calm down completely, and he forced himself to restrain his inner unwillingness. At the same time, when Qingxue, who was struggling to move forward, suddenly stopped. Her clear eyes were flickering, and she sighed in her heart. There was no chance. The gap was too big. Soon, Tao Jianxing and others also stopped, and their faces were gloomy. At this moment, Lin Sun was like a horse in the dust, leaving them far behind. It was impossible for them to catch up with him. No matter how hard they tried, it was doomed to be in vain. Humph! There are so many strong people here. What's the big deal if you can get the treasure refining qi? I'd like to see if you can keep this treasure. Tao Jianxing snorted coldly, and his voice resounded through the field. His words made many people's hearts tremble. An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. Lin Sun could get the chapter of Tao, but under the watchful eyes of the public, who would watch him leave with the treasure. For a time, not only Wen Qingxue and others, but also many strong people who had been watching in the nearby area had different thoughts. Oh no, these guys have the idea of killing and seizing the treasure. Ahu's heart thumped. Whoosh! In the distance, Lin Sun easily climbed up the inverted mountain. Nearby, the divine flame was surging, and the light was flowing, producing a terrible and boundless destructive aura, but it was suppressed and dissolved by the wonderful Tao fire one by one. The chapter of Tao was glowing, and it was filled with sacred and immortal aura. Lin Sun took a deep breath. When he was about to collect the mysterious treasure refining qi, he suddenly noticed that there was a broken piece of copper in front of a rock next to him, which was shrouded in the raging fire. It was difficult to notice its existence without looking carefully. The copper piece was only the size of a fist, black and very inconspicuous. But when Lin Sun looked at it, he was attracted at once and felt a vast and ancient aura coming to his face. He reached out to grab it and held it in his hand to observe it. Who would have thought that this black and inconspicuous piece of copper was extremely heavy? Lin Sun took a deep breath and ran all his strength to hold the copper piece in his hand, but it was quite difficult. This caused Lin Sun's heart to tremble, and he revealed a look of disbelief. It was as if he was holding up an ancient divine mountain, and it was unimaginably heavy. What was this? Lin Sun separated a strand of his spiritual awareness to sense it. Boom! In an instant, a shocking picture emerged in his mind. A fiercely burning furnace stood between heaven and earth. In the furnace, the purple-golden divine flame was burning fiercely, and the power of the law of Emperor Tao was derived like a tide. The sky seemed to be incinerated, and the void was full of terrible scorching torrents. Today, I forge 9 Emperor weapons with this furnace to protect Kunlun. An ethereal voice sounded, but no one knew where it came from. Then, a sword suddenly rushed out of the furnace. The sword intent was so strong that it shocked the 9 heavens and 10 earths. As soon as it appeared, it led the momentum of the whole world and sounded like the sonorous voice of the great way sung by the gods. Subsequently, a battle spear, a copper lamp, a battle flag, a Tao seal, a jade bottle, a set of armor, a jade plate, a divine blade. All of them flashed out from the furnace one by one. Each treasure emitted a monstrous vision, with the power to shock the ages, oppressing the whole world to collapse and sink. Following that, a calamity descended to destroy these 9 treasures that could be considered peerless in the world. Lin Sun held his breath and was scared out of his wits. Regardless of whether it was that sword or the descending calamity, both were too supreme and terrifying. They were unimaginably terrifying. Lin Sun only felt a buzzing sound in his mind and saw stars. All the scenes in Xiao Chen's mind disappeared, and some profound comprehension appeared in his heart, allowing him to understand some things. Lin Sun was soaked in cold sweat. When he looked at the black copper piece in his hand again, his eyes had completely changed. Chapter 1799. A treasure refining furnace had once refined 9 sovereign weapons in one go. This itself seemed to be inconceivable and world-shocking to the extreme, and it caused others to not dare imagine exactly what sort of miraculous might such a furnace possessed to be able to accomplish this. And now, the black piece of copper in his palm was a fragment of the cauldron. It was incomparably heavy. At the same time, Lin Sun finally understood that this place of refining treasures that was like a small world was actually transformed from that treasure refining furnace. The various Kunlun divine flames that were distributed here were actually the remnants left by that treasure refining furnace, and they were extremely weak. The treasure refining Taoist Qi here was also a strand of treasure Qi left by that treasure refining furnace, and it could refine and improve the quality of various treasures. When he figured this out, Lin Sun was even more shocked. There was no doubt that a long time ago, that treasure refining furnace must have suffered some kind of damage and turned into such a place of refining treasures, and it became a blessed place in the eyes of countless cultivators. What about the 9 sovereign weapons that were once refined by the treasure refining furnace in one go? After suffering that catastrophe, did they survive? If they survived, where did these 9 sovereign weapons go? Lin Sun took a deep breath and suppressed the doubts in his heart. This was the Kunlun ruins, and there were many unknown secrets and taboos. It was only by coincidence that he was able to peep into a corner of the truth of refining treasures. He put away the black copper piece in his hand and put it into the great way without end tower. This thing was left by that treasure refining furnace, and it was extremely mysterious. Perhaps it would have other magical uses in the future. Without any hesitation, Lin Sun looked at the Great Way chapter. At this moment, the eyes of everyone in the distance converged on Lin Sun. Everyone had different expressions and thoughts. Lin Sun made a move. He stretched out his hand and absorbed the treasure refining Taoist Qi that had transformed into the Great Way chapter. Boom! Almost at the same time, the huge inverted mountain suddenly collapsed. The rocks exploded, the flames dispersed, and the divine flames that had transformed into purple ferocious birds also vanished. Here's the chance. Many people's eyes lit up. Kill. While peerless figures like Tao Jianxing and Lu Ong attacked without hesitation and rushed towards Lin Sun in the distance. Rumble. For a time, this place was in turmoil. Heaven and earth were in chaos, covered by a terrifying and harsh aura. The battle came so fast that it was obvious that Lin Sun did not intend to give Lin any chance to escape at all. Lin Sun, hand over the treasure refining Taoist Qi and I promise I won't make things difficult for you anymore. Tao Jianxing was the first to rush over. This pure-blooded descendant of the Swan and I war race had blood energy that overflowed into the heavens. He was surging with killing intent, and his bearing was wild and arrogant. As he spoke, he'd already withdrawn a halberd a long time ago. The edge of the halberd soared through the sky, and it swept up a myriad of waves of the laws of the Grand Tao as it smashed towards Chen Shi. Dang! Lin Sun took out his broken sword and clashed with it. The collision between the two was like 2 volcanoes erupting, producing terrible waves. You don't have the ability to fight for the treasure, yet you still want to steal it? Do you think I'm easy to bully? Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. So what if I bully you? Tao Jianxing's face was emotionless as he swung the halberd with peerless divine valor, and his methods were extremely overbearing and ferocious. The void here was in chaos, clouds collapsing in all directions. Lin Sun smiled, but his smile was cold. I haven't tasted the meat of the swan and I wore yet, and I don't know what it tastes like. He ran the endless devouring scripture, and his whole body shone. A vision of the great abyss appeared, and his power suddenly rose to the extreme. The broken sword swept across like a galaxy. First cut of heaven. With a roar, Tao Jianxing's body was shaken off, and the halberd almost flew out of his hand. Blood spurted out from his mouth and nose, and he couldn't help but be shocked that this guy had such a terrible power. It should be known that he had always been very proud of his own cultivation. He was a famous genius among his peers on the Starry Sky Ancient Road. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to be ranked 77th on the Starry Sky Great Saints list. But now, in a head-on collision, he was shaken off by one blow, just like Luong before. How dare you bully me like this? Do the Swan and I clan like to brag like this? Lin Sun laughed, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. He had an invincible momentum. Kill! Luong and several other ruthless people came, and they attacked Lin Sun from different directions. For a time, the light of treasures crisscrossed, and Taoism was like a tide, covering the sky and the earth. All of these characters were powerful enough to stand alone among the great saints. They not only came from extraordinary backgrounds, but also had a strong foundation. Each of them was more powerful than the other. The momentum of a pincer attack was enough to frighten any peer. Lin Sun's expression also became dignified. He didn't dare to neglect and went all out. The essence, qi, and spirit in his body were boiling like a furnace, and the blood and qi were like real dragons galloping. In a trance, everyone felt that Lin Sun at this moment was like a big abyss, with a boundless figure that could swallow the sky and the earth. Boom! The world here seemed to explode, the sun and the moon dimmed, and the world turned upside down. Lin Sun moved horizontally and vertically, and the broken sword flashed and chopped. In his hands, holding the Avicii sword and the Yuan killer sword respectively, he fought the enemies in all directions alone. The most terrible thing was that no one could suppress his power for a while. This made many people's faces change. Before, they only heard that Lin Sun killed Yan Chunjun, and they also witnessed how he repelled Luong and Tao Jianxing. But no one expected that Lin Sun could still show such a tyrannical posture under such a situation of heavy siege. This was completely beyond people's expectation. On the other hand, some of the spectators in the distance were extremely astounded, and they were flabbergasted. Lin Sun is too strong, isn't he? Did he really come from the ancient desolation realm? It's too unreal. It's not that fierce dragons don't cross the river. How can someone who has the guts to kill Yan Chunjun be an ordinary person? Discussions broke out everywhere. Some strong people who originally planned to fish in troubled waters couldn't help but hesitate. It was no different from courting death to intervene in such a battle at this time. But there were still some people who were ready to make a move. They thought that Lin Sun had been heavily besieged. It seemed that he could still act fiercely now, but in fact, he was not a threat. Ahu was anxious. When she was about to help, she heard Lin Sun's voice, asking her to watch indifferently. If there was any danger, it wouldn't be too late to take action. Ahu thought about it for a while and agreed. She also knew that if she rushed up at this time, she might be able to share some of the pressure for Lin Sun. But at the same time, if she was besieged and fell into a dangerous situation, she would become a burden to Lin Sun. It was better to assess the situation and wait for the right time to take action. Boom! The battle became more and more fierce. The world there had been submerged by blazing and turbulent Taoist light. All kinds of horrible power of law spread, showing countless horrible visions. Finally, Lin Sun felt great pressure. Each of his opponents this time was extraordinary. If it was one-on-one, he had absolute confidence to defeat them one by one. But when they swarmed up, the situation was different. Kill. Lu Ong and Tao Jianxing attacked with all their strength without reservation. They regarded Lin Sun as prey and wanted to kill him and seize his treasures. They all knew that Lin Sun not only had the Tao Qi of refining treasures that had evolved into the chapter of Tao, but also had the flying immortal token. Bang! It didn't take long for Lin Sun to be injured. His shoulder was torn by a sword qi. His flesh and blood splashed and his bones were visible. Even though his injuries were healed in the blink of an eye, it could be seen just how intense this one versus many battle was. This was also the first time that Lin Sun had encountered a great danger since he stepped into the Great Saint realm. It was also the first time that he had been injured. Seeing this, Tao Jianxing and Lu Ong were like sharks who smelled blood. Their attacks became more and more fierce and terrifying. Moreover, as time went by, the number of strong people who joined the battle was increasing, causing more and more pressure to Lin Sun. But even in such a situation, Lin Sun was not afraid at all. His black eyes were as deep as the abyss, burning with the fighting desire like boiling lava. All the power in his body was operated and pushed to an unprecedented level. With the development of infinite devouring scripture, there were also fighting saint method, anger of Yazi, leakless and other secret methods to stimulate the power in his body. Boom! In the end, Lin Sun's every breath was like the raging of wind and thunder, leading the momentum of Zhou Su. His whole body was flowing with blazing brilliance, like a great abyss that covered the sky and the earth, moving horizontally in the void. His figure was immeasurable and domineering. This made the besiegers feel shocked and tremble. What a heaven-defying genius this was! He was only at the early stage of the Great Saint realm, but he was already so powerful. How powerful would he be when he grew up in the future? Even if he was ranked in the top 50 of the Great Saint list of starry sky, it was impossible to have such a foundation. Whoosh! An illusory sword intent came from a distance out of thin air. The sword momentum was like a dragon rising from the land, and it had the power to crush the sky. Panwu Free Sword Intent. When Qingxue, the successor of Panwu Taoist court, who had been watching from a distance, also took action at this moment. She was as beautiful as a fairy, and her figure was ethereal. As soon as she took action, it was a thunderous blow. Crack! Although Lin Sun blocked the sword, he was swept by the sword qi. A bloody wound was torn on his chest, and his face became pale. Lin Sun's eyes were cold. He glanced at Wen Qingxue without any emotion on his face. Kill! Lu Ong, Tao Jianxing and others took this opportunity to attack more fiercely and terrifyingly. All the spectators in the distance could see that Lin Sun was in a precarious situation and had lost his momentum. Ahu's heart couldn't help but tighten. She was ready to rescue Lin Sun. In her palm there was a vague gourd pattern looming. Puff! In the field, Lin Sun's back was hit by a big seal. He staggered and coughed up blood. Go to hell! Lu Ong, who seized the opportunity, showed a ferocious look and waved his sword to kill Lin Sun. But at this moment, Lin Sun showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth. His eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was staring at a prey that took the initiative to come to him. Lu Ong felt an inexplicable palpitation in his heart. At this moment, Lin Sun suddenly jumped up. In his palm, a mutton-fat jade bottle appeared, and 33 heavy swords suddenly spurted out in the air. Every heavy sword was formed by 18,000 strands of sword qi. As soon as the 33 heavy swords came out, it was like an overwhelming sea of sword qi. Chapter 1800. In an instant, Lu Eng's figure was submerged by the torrent of sword qi. Puff, puff. His flesh and blood were cut into pieces by the dense sword qi. Even his spirit had no time to escape and was destroyed by the brilliant sword chi. As the sword chi surged and spread out, the expressions of some of the nearby experts changed, and they utilized all their abilities to block and dodge. Only then were they able to avoid being affected. Boom! A scene of great destruction appeared in this void. This was the 33 strikes. After being blessed by the great Tao immeasurable bottle, its power had doubled. Its killing power was terrifying. Not to mention Luong, any other peak great sage present would die without a doubt. There was a dead silence in the field. At this moment, the strong people who besieged Lin were all shocked. Luong, a pure-blood descendant of the Blood Kylan battle clan, was killed in a flash. Who wouldn't be shocked by such a bloody scene? The spectators in the distance gasped and gulped down a mouthful of saliva with great difficulty. It was terrible. They thought that Lin was bound to be defeated. But in a twinkling of an eye, Lin turned the sky upside down and killed the enemy. Ahu breathed a sigh of relief and said to himself, I forgot that this guy has a lot of trump cards in his hands. As soon as Luong died, the original situation seemed to be torn apart. Lin soon seized the opportunity, and was about to jump out of the battle. Whoosh! But a sword chi suddenly flashed and blocked Lin Sun's way. The sword chi was like a rainbow piercing the sky, illusory and magnificent. It was still Wen Qingxue. This beautiful woman, who was as beautiful as a fairy, had extremely terrible intuition and a calm mind. Her reaction was also far faster than that of ordinary people. With a bang, Lin Sun broke the sword chi head-on. But this time, he lost the opportunity to jump out of the battle and was besieged by others again. Lin Sun's eyes became colder and colder. Last time when he fought with Wei Zia and Kuan Jilin, it was this woman who intervened and saved Kuan Jilin's life. This time, she blocked him again and again, which made Lin Sun's heart surge with strong killing intent. Perhaps, in the eyes of others, this woman was a celestial maiden that was like the bright moon in the sky, stunning the starry sky, and countless geniuses flocked to flatter her. But for Lin, this woman was already an enemy. Since they were enemies, there was no distinction between man and woman, only life and death. Rumble, in the following time, the battle became more and more intense. Witnessing the death of Luong, the others present dared not to be careless. They all looked solemn and regarded Lin Sun as an unprecedented enemy. Regardless of victory or defeat, Lin Sun's power in this battle was bound to cause an uproar if it was transmitted back to the starry sky ancient road. After all, being able to fight numerous peerless figures that were ranked on the starry sky great saint rankings until now under the circumstances that he was fighting many by himself could already be said to be unprecedented and extremely rare. Even though this boundless devouring scripture is strong, I've cultivated it too shallow in the end, and I'm unable to completely merge it with my own cultivation. Lin Sun was enlightened. After fighting for so long and releasing all of his power, he realized that other people's techniques were still other people's technique. No matter how suitable it was for him, it was still not as good as the techniques he created himself, which could allow him to unleash all of his potential. Boom! Thinking of this, Lin Sun's momentum suddenly changed. Before, he was like a big abyss moving across the world, swallowing everything and being boundlessly domineering. But at this moment, he was like the only great furnace in the world, with eternal charm, containing ancient Tao, and the power to deduce the laws of the world. This was the Great Way Furnace scripture. This was the self-cultivation method created by Lin Sun, which contained all of Lin Sun's cultivation and cultivation. He's changed. Tao Jianxing, Wen Qingxue and others were a little shocked. Was this the real foundation of Lin Sun? This was simply too inconceivable. At this time, Lin Sun's mind was clear. He finally felt the mystery of qi refining, body refining, and spirit refining. Even his talent, the devouring abyss, was fully integrated into his own cultivation method, so that his combat power could be truly released. Boom! When he attacked, he was like an immortal performing martial arts. Great divination void-breaking finger, first cut of Tian Yuan, first punch of shaking sky, Tai Xian sword scripture, 9 changes of calamity dragon. All kinds of mysteries were at his fingertips, and were released unprecedentedly in the Great Way Furnace scripture. Puff! Before long, someone couldn't bear it and was hit by Lin Sun's finger. The armor covering his body collapsed and a hole was formed. The shock made him spew blood from his mouth and nose, and he let out a muffled groan. This made many people feel bitterly disappointed. Who could believe that Lin Sun, who was besieged, not only failed to suppress his arrogance, but also began to reverse the situation? All the people watching the battle in the distance were shocked as if they had seen a god. Perhaps it was because they had never heard of Lin Sun's name before, so they were particularly shocked at this moment. Ahu's beautiful eyes were bright. She finally dared to confirm that the combat power Lin Sun showed now was his real strength. Bang! Soon, the broken blade swept out and smashed a spear. The one holding the spear was an extremely powerful and majestic man in a golden robe. Suffering such an impact, his wrist was broken, and he screamed. If he hadn't dodged in time, this blow would have been enough to kill him. If you don't use your trump cards, this guy will turn the tables. Tao Jianxing shouted with a livid face. Before his voice died away, he took the lead to take out a cyan bronze bell and gently shook it in the void. Clang! A majestic bell rang and turned into a solid cyan sound wave, rushing to Lin Sun. Most miraculous of it all was that rows of ancient markings of the Tao that seemed like earthworms actually floated up into appearance within the green sound wave. They glowed brilliantly, and their auras were terrifying to the point it was horrifying. Sapphire Warlord Bell. It was an ancient treasure of the Taowu war clan. An emperor once held this treasure and shook it gently. Wherever the bell rang, all the mountains, rivers, and all the creatures in the world would be destroyed. In an instant, Lin Sun's soul was also impacted, and he could see stars. He couldn't help but show a dignified expression and took out the endless Tao Tower without hesitation. Buzz, the body of the tower, which seemed to be made of divine gold and glaze, scattered rays of black golden Taoist light, which collided with the cyan sound wave. In the earth-shattering roar, the sapphire warlord bell suddenly trembled and wailed. Tao Jianxing suffered a backfire and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and full of disbelief. The power of the sapphire warlord bell was so horrible, but it was completely suppressed. The other people present also changed their expressions. It's that tower. In the far distance, Ji Qian and Jiang Heng, who had just arrived, immediately recognized the endless Tao Tower in Lin Sun's hand. Is it really that tower? Beside them, the elegant and handsome Meng Yi, a descendant of the Qiongqi war clan, showed a strange look in his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. On the battlefield, Lin Sun wanted to kill Tao Jianxing in one fell swoop. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Swish! Almost out of instinct, he moved back violently. At the same time, in the void where he stood, a thin figure covered with gray mist emerged, holding a silver saber with a strange luster in his hand. Sha Luqing. Lin Sun recognized the skinny young man in an instant. You've surprised me again. Sha Luqing was a little surprised. His aura was obscure and strange as he silently appeared here, and it caused the hearts of Tao Jianxing and the others to jerk fiercely while they felt an extremely dangerous feeling. I'm also surprised by your despicable behavior. Lin Sun snorted. Really? It's a pity that you can't escape this time. Sha Luqing licked his lips and smiled coldly. While talking, his figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in front of Lin Sun, and the silver saber in his hand stabbed Lin Sun's throat. His speed and movement were beyond everyone's expectation. Lin Sun resisted with the sword of Avicii in his hand. But strangely, Sha Luqing's figure flashed and disappeared again. His aura could not be locked at all. Lin Sun suddenly leaned sideways. Swish! A silver light suddenly appeared and tore the void where Lin Sun stood. That was to say, if Lin Sun hadn't dodged in time, this blow could have torn him into two, and Xiaoyoqing's figure disappeared again. Everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw the secret battle technique that came and went without a trace. Boom! Lin Sun exerted all his strength and turned his body into a furnace of the Great Way, spreading his power in all directions. Oh, you can't stop it! Xiaoyoqing's cold voice sounded, drifting, and his figure silently appeared behind Lin Sun again, and the silver saber in his hand stabbed out. It was very strange. It should be known that Lin Sun's power covered the whole place, but Xiaoyoqing didn't seem to be affected at all. Anyone who met such an opponent would be terrified. It was completely impossible to guard against him. Swish! With years of experience and instinct, Lin Sun dodged again and narrowly avoided this blow, but his face had become gloomy. It was the first time that he had encountered such a strange fighting method. Why don't you take action? Xiaoyoqing's voice sounded in the field. Kill! Tao Jianxing and others' eyes flashed, and they took action without hesitation. No matter who Xiaoyoqing was, at least his goal was to kill Lin Sun like them. This boy is in danger. In the distance, the elegant Meng Yi said. Shouldn't we make our move as well? Ji Qian couldn't help it. He couldn't tolerate Lin Sun's treasures being divided by others. Meng Yi was about to say something, but suddenly looked up. Swish! A divine rainbow suddenly rose into the sky and rushed into the battle, turning into a woman in a yellow dress. It was Ahu. She came to Lin Sun and transmitted her voice. Let's go! Boom! Almost at the same time, she waved her hand, and a black talisman exploded in the void, rushing out a black fog all over the sky, drowning the whole world. Not to mention the sight, even the spiritual awareness was blocked, and nothing could be seen. In the black fog, when Qingxue, Tao Jianxing and others also fell into darkness, as if isolated from the world, and their spiritual awareness and perception completely lost their function. This made them all change their faces, and they became extremely vigilant. When the black fog all over the sky dissipated, there was no trace of Lin Sun and Ahu in the field, as if they had evaporated into thin air. For a moment there was no sound in the field. Everyone looked at each other, and their faces were extremely gloomy. Chapter 1801. Lin Sun had escaped. No one had expected that Lin Sun still had a chance to escape in such a situation, which was unacceptable. Damn it! Tao Jianxing's face contorted, and his eyes turned red. With their pride and dignity, it was embarrassing for them to join forces to deal with Lin Sun alone. If word got out, it would affect their reputation. Now, even if they joined forces, they still couldn't take Lin Sun down. It was a great humiliation. The others' faces were ugly as well. In this battle, Lin Sun seemed to have escaped, but in fact, he was the biggest winner. First, he obtained a treasure refining Dao Qi that had evolved into a great Dao chapter. Then, he killed Lu Ong, a pure-blooded descendant of the Blood-Scale Battle Clan. If it wasn't for the mysterious and terrifying Xiaoyoqing's intervention at the critical moment, the previous siege would have almost been reversed by him. If we let such a ruthless person escape, he'll definitely become a huge threat in the future. Someone sighed, feeling suffocated. If it was a ruthless person on the starry ancient path, they might be fearful and apprehensive when fighting and killing. However, Lin Sun was not one of them. Yan Chunjun of the Universe Dao Court, Lu Ong of the Blood-Scale Battle Clan. Each of them had an extremely terrifying background and origin. Who would dare to offend them on the starry ancient path? However, they were all killed by Lin Sun. This was enough to make anyone tremble and fearful. Humph, do you think he can walk out of Kunlun ruins alive? After saying that, Xiaoyoqing's figure turned into wisps of obscure mist and disappeared from the scene. Many people were stunned, but they immediately reacted. Indeed, the power Lin Sun displayed might be enough to make anyone afraid, but at the same time, he had already been targeted by countless powerhouses. Some people wanted to snatch treasures, while others wanted revenge. In this dangerous Kunlun ruins, it would be difficult for Lin Sun to survive. When Qingxue remained silent for a moment before turning around and leaving. Her figure was ethereal and her appearance was like a fairy. She seemed very calm from beginning to end, but deep down, she knew that she had completely become enemies with Lin Sun. However, she did not care too much. Lin Sun had a trump card, but so did she. Gradually, many powerhouses left one after another. He actually escaped. Ji Qian felt a sense of loss. As long as we're in the Kunlun ruins, there'll be plenty of opportunities in the future. At the side, the elegant and handsome Meng Yi smiled with a calm expression. I'm even more curious. The successor of the Divine Mirror Ancient Sect, who hasn't appeared for a long time, has actually appeared in the Kunlun ruins and has his eyes on Lin Sun Divine Illumination Ancient Sect. Ji Qian and Jiang Heng were both shocked. The 6 Dao courts and the 10 war clans were naturally the ones that attracted the most attention on the starry ancient path. But in the darkness that the world couldn't see, there were some extremely terrifying and mysterious forces. The Divine Illuminating Ancient Sect was one of them. This was an ancient power that moved in the darkness, and it was an organization of assassins that could strike terror in the hearts of countless cultivators. Perhaps very few people knew the name of the Divine Illuminating Ancient Sect, but as long as the name of the Oracle Apostle was mentioned, everyone would know. Those who were ordered by the gods to kill were known as the Oracle Apostles. In the archaic era 100,000 years ago, the name of the Oracle Apostle could be said to have shaken the starry skies, intimidated the heavens, and was extremely terrifying. No matter who was targeted by them, no matter what identity or cultivation level, no one could escape their assassination. It was rumored that there was once an Oracle Apostle who killed a real Emperor realm existence. These mysterious and terrifying Oracle Apostles came from the Divine Illuminating Ancient Sect in the Dark World. Didn't they say that the Divine Illuminating Ancient Sect was destroyed after the end of the Battle of Emperors? Jiang Heng couldn't help asking. That's just a rumor. A mysterious force like the Divine Illuminating Ancient Sect that is distributed in the dark is like the dark side of the light. It's impossible to eradicate it so easily. Meng Yi's eyes were clear as he spoke slowly. He came from the Qiongqi war clan and had read many ancient books and learned many secrets about the Divine Illuminating Ancient Sect and the Oracle Apostles. This sect was known as one of the 3 giants in the dark world of the starry sky. In this sect, there was a divine punishment list, and the names listed on it were all targets that this sect must kill. Meng Yi was very curious about whether Lin Sun's name had also been listed on the divine punishment list. So, that guy with strange movements just now is an oracle emissary? Ji Qian asked in surprise. He came from the Ji clan, an imperial family, and of course, he was well aware of the terror of the Oracle Apostles. It must be so. Meng Yi thought for a moment and said, however, no matter how powerful the Oracle emissaries are, they wouldn't take the initiative to provoke the 6 major Dao courts or the 10 war clans. Obviously, Lin Sun isn't one of them. Jiang Heng couldn't help asking, how could a guy from the ancient Desolation realm offend the Divine Illuminating Ancient Sect? Meng Yi said, the Oracle Apostles kill people on the orders of the gods. They never care about the reason. As for who issued the orders, I'm afraid even Lin Sun doesn't know this was normal. In the past, many strong men who were assassinated by the Oracle Apostles didn't even know why they were targeted. No matter who kills Lin Sun, I don't care. But I must get the flying immortal token in his hand. Meng Yi said calmly. His words were full of determination. On this day, the news about Lin Sun's battle with a group of heroes spread like wildfire in the treasure refining place. For a time, it caused a great uproar. Not long ago, when Lin Sun killed Yan Chunjun, he caused a great disturbance. Now, even Lu Ong died in his hands. This was undoubtedly too shocking. The most incredible thing was that even a group of peerless great sages on the starry sky great sage list couldn't kill Lin Sun. Instead, Lin Sun escaped. What was a ruthless man? That was it. At the same time, some news about the divine illuminating ancient sect and the oracle apostles began to spread. Shaoyuqing's appearance began to make many strong men fearful and vigilant. Some people gloated, thinking that Lin Sun was targeted by the oracle apostles and would definitely die. At this time, Lin Sun and who were hiding in the depths of a deep cave. Whoosh! Lin Sun swallowed the divine medicine and meditated while saying, "Ahu, thank you so much this time. We are in the same group, so we should go in and out together." Ahu said and stood up. He stood up. "Just relax and rest. I'll stand guard for you." Lin Sun nodded. Although he finally escaped from the battle, he also consumed a lot of energy and his physical strength was on the verge of exhaustion. The cultivation of the early stage of the Great Saint Realm is still not enough. After this battle, Lin Sun thoroughly realized that he must improve his combat power as soon as possible. In the case of one-on-one, he would certainly not be afraid of anyone, but when it came to one against many, it was obvious that he began to struggle. If he couldn't break through, he might not be able to suppress all his opponents the next time he encountered such a siege. I can be invincible in the true Saint Realm, and the same goes for the Great Saint Realm. Lin Sun took a deep breath and began to concentrate on cultivation. His whole body was flowing with Taoist light, and he looked solemn. Not far away, Ahu stared at Lin Sun silently. He knew that after this battle, Lin Sun also felt suffocated. However, this was also a good thing. The real strong never feared that the enemy was too strong, but that there was no opponent. Ahu was very sure that after this battle, Lin Sun was destined to become stronger in the future with his strong foundation that was not inferior to any peers in the world. 2 days later, Lin Sun woke up from meditation. He sensed silently and found that his cultivation had obviously improved a lot, but there was still a big gap to enter the middle stage of the Great Saint Realm. I have roughly speculated that Shaoyuqing should have mastered an extremely mysterious body movement, so that he can ignore all defenses and move in the void at will. Seeing Lin Sun wake up, Ahu immediately said. She had been thinking about this problem in the past 2 days. The most important thing is that his body movement can avoid all perception and locking of spiritual awareness, so that he will appear erratic and unpredictable. Lin Sun nodded. He carefully recalled the details of the battle at that time and said, "Yes, his strength may not be the strongest, but his body movement is the most mysterious and erratic." Ahu's beautiful eyes glowed with wisdom. Such a body movement must involve the wonderful use of the Great Way of Space, which also means that Shaoyuqing's control of the Great Way of Space has obviously reached an extremely terrible level. After a pause, she looked at Lin Sun. "If you want to deal with him, there are 2 ways. One is to improve your cultivation, and the other is to further improve the power of the Great Way of Space." Lin Sun agreed. He was also thinking about this problem and had decided to take action. The power of the Great Way in the Kunlun ruins is incomparably strong and solid. It can also make it easier for cultivators to comprehend the profundities of the Great Way of Space, Lin Sun said. "Currently, I've only comprehended a little bit of the Great Way of Space, and there's still a long way to go before I reach the next level. I plan to focus on improving my cultivation." Ahu smiled and said, "Do you still remember the immortal peach tree I mentioned? If you can pluck an immortal peach, it'll be enough to withstand 100 years of hard cultivation." Lin Sun's eyes lit up. Ahu said, "In 2 days, the treasure refining ground will fall into a silent and sealed state. At that time, we'll leave in advance and enter the depths of the Kunlun ruins to look for this immortal peach tree first." Lin Sun nodded in agreement. The treasure refining ground was only the periphery of the Kunlun ruins. The real supreme fortune and opportunities were distributed in the depths of the Kunlun ruins. Ahu thought of something and her beautiful eyes were filled with a trace of anticipation. "Brother Lin, take advantage of this time to see how magical that Great Way chapter is." Lin Sun was stunned, and then he immediately understood and agreed happily. Buzz, with a wave of his sleeve, a strand of treasure refining Dao Qi emerged and transformed into a Great Way chapter. It emitted a sacred and immortal aura, and it lit up the dark cave. Vaguely, there were strands of Dao sound that sounded like the sounds of nature resounding, and it was extremely magical. There was no doubt that this treasure-refining Dao Qi was too extraordinary. At the same time, Lin Sun took out the broken blade. Chapter 1802. Whoosh! The broken blade was like a hungry wolf. As soon as it appeared, it rushed into the treasure-refining Taoist Qi. Its snow-white surface emitted amazing obscure fluctuations, and it was singing happily. It was visible to the naked eye that the treasure-refining Taoist Qi was being refined little by little. And on the surface of the broken blade, there was an amazing change. Life-precious patterns that resembled golden dragons appeared one after another, swimming about within the broken blade with their heads held high. They were extremely lifelike. Both Lin Sun and Hu were stunned. The speed of transformation was too conspicuous. Originally, the broken blade had 8 life-bonded tattoos, but in just a few breaths there were 6 more. Moreover, the transformation was still going on. The clear howls of the broken blade grew more and more excited, and the obscure aura it emanated grew denser and denser. If one looked carefully, the 3 Dao marking diagrams that had transformed into the origin, extreme, and execution inheritances seemed to have come to life from their deathly silence, and they emitted a mysterious aura. At this moment, the dim cave was already glowing brilliantly, and it was filled with the divine glow of treasures. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, who wouldn't have believed that the transformation of a treasure could show such a mysterious phenomenon? What was the origin of this treasure? Hu became more and more curious. At the same time, Lin Sun couldn't calm down either. The broken blade had long been his life-bonded holy weapon. At this moment, every transformation of the broken blade appeared in his heart, which surprised, and even shocked him. 20, 30, 40, 50. For a full 10 minutes, the broken blade had been transforming, like a bamboo growing crazily in the spring rain, rising steadily. With the transformation of the broken blade, the treasure-refining Taoist Qi that had evolved into a passage of the Great Way had gradually become dim and blurred. Until now, there was not much treasure-refining Taoist Qi left. Finally, under the shocked gaze of Lin Sun and Hu, the broken blade completely refined the treasure-refining Taoist Qi. On the other hand, 54 innate treasured markings that were bright and golden like enormous golden dragons surged into appearance on its surface. Clang! Before the two came to their senses, Lin Sun suddenly shone, as if he had accumulated too much power, and began to release it at this moment. Boom! A divine splendor rushed out from the sharp edge of the broken blade, accompanied by a fierce aura. This gloomy cave was completely destroyed, unable to stop this terrifying aura's impact. A hole was forcefully blasted open, rushing to the surface, rushing into the clouds. What a shocking precious light! It's like a bull, sharp and fiendish. There is definitely an exceptional great treasure that has appeared. A group of cultivators in the vicinity had been alarmed, and they shot their gazes over while revealing burning gazes. Quick! Move now! Without hesitation, they teleported through the void and rushed over. But when they arrived, the shocking light suddenly vanished, and at the same time, Lin Sun and Hu's figures charged out from the ground. All of those cultivators were stunned, and then their expressions changed. Damn it, it's that guy. Who? Lin. It's him? These practitioners were all trembling in their hearts and wanted to retreat. They thought of Lin Sun's brilliant record of killing Lu Ong in a fierce battle a few days ago. You want to snatch the treasure? Lin Sun showed a playful look. The bodies of these cultivators trembled in unison, and they hurriedly shook their heads. We're just passing by. Farewell." They didn't hesitate to turn around and leave as if there was oil on their feet. Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. When did the cultivators on the ancient path of the starry sky become so timid? Who grinned and said, "They've started to understand that you, demon god Lin, aren't someone they can offend at will." Lin Sun was surprised and said, "I just want to test the might of the broken blade." An additional natal treasure mark on the broken blade was able to increase a cultivator's combat strength by 1%. An additional 10 could increase a cultivator's combat strength by 10%. Now, the broken blade possessed 54 natal treasure marks, so how formidable would its might be? Ahu said, "Once you condense 100 innate treasured markings on this treasure, it'll undergo a completely new transformation and develop an artifact spirit embryo. At that time, relying on the might of this treasure would be sufficient to double your combat strength." Lin Sun sighed softly, "It's too difficult. The treasure refining chi I obtained before was so amazing, but it could only transform the broken blade to this level. I don't know how long it will take for me to condense 100 natal treasure mark." Immediately Lin Sun smiled, "But I'm already satisfied." In the following period of time, the two of them began to move. They planned to use the remaining time to search for more treasure refining Dao Qi. On the way, they also learned some news. For example, in today's treasure refining place, many powerful figures were searching for and inquiring about Lin Sun's whereabouts, and threatened to kill him. This made Lin Sun's heart surge with killing intent. Did these bastards really think that Lin Sun was a fish on the chopping block that could be taken at will? At the same time, Lin Sun and Hu also heard the news about Sha Luqing, the divine sunshine ancient sect. This caused Ahu's beautiful eyes to suddenly narrow, and she said, "So it's an envoy of the divine oracle. No wonder he possesses such mysterious combat technique." Lin Sun's heart could not calm down. He remembered something from the past. When he killed Zhu Yingkong in the Nine Regions battlefield, he had inquired about the quasi-emperor Ba Qi from Zhu Yingkong. It was not until Zhu Yingkong died that he gave him an answer. Ba Qi, one of the founding elders of the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect in the ancient Yin territory, hid in the border battlefield all year round, and was a quasi-emperor. Moreover, Zhu Yingkong said with certainty that with Lin Sun's background, he might be able to easily kill Ba Qi when he stepped into the quasi-emperor realm in the future, but he would also not be able to withstand the wrath of the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect. At that time, Lin Sun did not believe it at all. Zhu Yingkong did not explain, but said, "You will understand how terrifying the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect is in the future." However, Lin Sun did not expect that Sha Luqing was from the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect. Is the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect very powerful? Lin Sun noticed that Ahu's mood was a little strange. In the dark world on the starry sky ancient path, the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect is regarded as one of the three giants. This force, next, Ahu told Lin Sun some information about the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect. Lin Sun soon understood that the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect was a mysterious killer organization, and its successor was called the Oracle Emissary. They were secretive and cold-blooded. The most frightening thing was that the sect was extremely mysterious, and came from the dark world. No one knew how terrifying its background was. This sect has a divine punishment ranking. Any assassination target that is targeted by them will be recorded on this ranking. You suspect that my name has also been recorded on the list? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. Killers came and went without a trace, and it was impossible to guard against them. It would be a headache to be targeted by such a terrifying and mysterious killer organization. Ahu nodded and said with a strange look in his eyes, "Among the three giants in the dark world, in addition to the Divine Sunshine Ancient sect, there is also the Hidden Land realm. Those bald donkeys call themselves the Adversity Travelers and take it as their duty to eradicate the heretics in the world. Don't forget that these bald donkeys have been targeting you for a long time." Lin Sun was stunned. What's the relationship between the Hidden Land Realm and the Great Earth Temple? Ahu quickly explained. The Great Earth Temple is a branch of the Hidden Land Realm, which can be called the Outer Gate. The real successors of the Inner Gate will never reveal their identity. Lin Sun was speechless. The grudge between him and the Great Earth Temple started from the tranquility scripture left by holy monk Du Ji. In those years, he killed many successors of the Great Earth Temple. For example, the 18 Ksitigarbha sons and a sage named Fa Lin. However, Lin Sun didn't expect that the Great Earth Temple in the ancient Desolation Realm had such a special relationship with the Hidden Land Realm in the Dark World. So, the black-robed monk we saw before is not from the Great Earth Temple, but from the Hidden Land Realm. Lin Sun's black eyes were deep. He thought of the black-robed monk with a black lotus mark on his forehead not long ago. If it were any other practitioner, his Taoist heart would collapse after being targeted by the two giants in the dark world in the starry sky. Lin Sun wasn't shocked or afraid, but he couldn't help frowning in awe. He knew the style of the Great Earth Temple best. Those bald donkeys were cold and unafraid of death. In order to kill the enemy, they were not afraid of death at all. What's the matter? Are you a little scared? Ahu joked. Lin Sun touched his nose and said, I'm just afraid of trouble. It's annoying enough to be targeted by a group of flies. Now there's another group of flies. After a pause, he asked curiously, by the way, which is the other giant force in the dark world? A gleam of light flashed in Ahu's beautiful eyes. She said, Bronze Sparrow Tower, a mysterious organization whose power spreads all over the dark world and controls the chaotic land and the underground world. Nowadays, almost 90% of the villains on the bounty list on the ancient path in the starry sky come from the dark territory controlled by Bronze Sparrow Tower. Different from the Divine Sunshine Ancient Sect and the Hidden Land Realm, Bronze Sparrow Tower is like the Dominator who sets the order of the dark world. It maintains the operation of the whole dark world with its supreme will and iron-blooded power. I once heard that if the Copper Sparrow Pavilion wasn't holding down the fort, once the order of the dark world collapsed, the ferocious people scattered throughout the dark world would definitely swarm out and surge into the ancient path of the starry sky, bringing unimaginable calamities and slaughter. Speaking of this, Ahu looked at Lin Sun and said, Do you feel that Bronze Sparrow Tower doesn't act like a giant in the dark world at all? Lin Sun nodded. It's a pity that most practitioners in the world don't think so. In their opinion, if it weren't for the protection of the Bronze Sparrow Tower, the ferocious criminals in the dark world would have been annihilated a long time ago. The so-called underground world and the land of chaos would have been trampled and eradicated, too. Lin Sun was stunned and asked thoughtfully, What about you? What do you think of Bronze Sparrow Tower? Ahu's eyes were clear, and her expression was rarely serious. She said seriously, I only know that without Bronze Sparrow Tower in the dark world, the ancient path in the starry sky would have been in chaos. It was about 10:30. Chapter 1803. So far, Lin Sun had a rough idea in his mind. In the dark world of the starry sky ancient path, there were three giants: the Divine Illuminating Ancient Sect, the Hidden Land Realm, and the Bronze Sparrow Tower. Among them, the God Illuminating Ancient Sect saw themselves as the oracle emissaries, carrying out the orders of the gods to kill. The Hidden Land Realm regarded themselves as the traveler of misfortune, and took it as their duty to eradicate the heretics in the world. On the other hand, Copper Sparrow Tower was like the maker and defender of the order of the dark world. Its influence spread throughout the entire dark world, and its influence was far-reaching. Where there is light, there is darkness. As for where the dark world was, most of the cultivators in the world were unable to say. Even Ahu only said that the dark world was just a general term. Generally, the more turbulent and chaotic a place was, the more likely it was to be infiltrated by dark forces. This undoubtedly made the three dark giants, the Divine Sunshine Ancient Sect, the Hidden Land Realm, and the Copper Sparrow Tower, appear even more mysterious. From this moment on, Lin Sun had a trace of vigilance in his heart. Being targeted by two dark forces, the Divine Sunlight Ancient Sect and the Hidden Land Realm, no one could remain indifferent. One day later, the entire treasure refinement grounds suddenly trembled while the heavens and the earth shook, and all the cultivators scattered throughout the area stopped what they were doing. "This place is going to fall back into the seal," someone whispered. "The true danger and test will begin now. Don't forget that in the past, there were only a handful of people who could walk out of the Kunlun ruins alive." Someone had a solemn expression. The treasure refinement ground was only the outskirts of the Kunlun ruins, so it was not that dangerous. However, it was different in the depths of the Kunlun ruins. It was filled with killing intent, and it was extremely likely that even a piece of mud or an inconspicuous blade of grass could take the life of the great sage of ultimate sin. This was not an exaggeration, it had truly happened in the past. In the depths of the Kunlun ruins there are great dangers, but there are also great fortuitous encounters. The secrets are like a fog, and no one has truly seen through it since the ancient times. This time, I wonder how many people will be able to obtain the fortuitous encounter. Some people's thoughts were wandering. Boom! It wasn't long before a muffled rumble resounded in the sky, and it caused one's heart to tremble. Then, one after another, thick green vines descended from the sky and landed in different areas of the treasure refining grounds. The ascending heaven vine has appeared. Many cultivators began to move. Some summoned their secret treasures, some formed hand seals, and some activated their blood chi. They were sensing each other. There were countless heaven ascension vines. Cultivators only needed to climb up the vines to leave the treasure refinement ground and enter the real Kunlun ruins. However, almost all of these heaven ascending vines lead to a land of death. If one was unlucky enough to be chosen, it was highly likely that they would end up in a land of great danger. In the past, countless cultivators had accidentally entered the death zone and become a true dead person. "Let's get moving," Ahu spoke. She tossed out a silver hairpin that was densely inscribed with Tao markings and diagrams flashed out. Buzz! The silver hairpin glowed and suddenly pointed in a distant direction. "Let's go." Who led the way, and Lin followed closely behind. Seeing this, Lin Sun suddenly remembered that he had obtained 3 treasures when he passed the last 3 tests of Green Cloud Path in the heaven accessing place. One was the Wings of the Burning God, one was the Heavenly Mandate Profound Energy, and the last was a treasure called the Heavenly Cycle Thousand Trickeries Guide. According to what the mysterious woman said, the Universe Thousand Trap was extremely profound. No matter if it was getting lost in the boundless sea of stars, falling into the maze of the heavens and the earth, or straying into a perilous predicament, one could rely on this treasure to deduce the path of survival. Here we are. Before long, Hu stopped. In front of a mountain in the distance, there was a huge green vine as thick as a bucket hanging from the sky. From a distance, it looked like a green python hanging upside down from the sky. Whose silver hairpin was pointing at this heaven-ascending vine. Lin Sun looked up, but he could not see how long the vine was. It seemed to extend from the sky. Once you ascend to the sky, you will arrive at the Kunlun Mountains. That is a boundlessly vast remnant that hides countless secrets and dangers. After arriving there, you must be careful. Who exhorted and was about to take action. A voice as gentle as the spring breeze suddenly sounded. "What a coincidence to meet you here." Along with the voice, the void in the distance rippled, and 3 figures walked out one after another. The first figure was thin, elegant and handsome, with wide sleeves and a belt. It was Meng Yi, the pure-blood descendant of the Cheongqi fighting clan. Ji Qian and Jiang Heng of Xuanji sect were beside him. When they saw Lin Sun and Hu, they were both stunned. Ji Qian frowned, and Jiang Heng's pretty face turned cold. When Lin Sun saw Jiang Heng, he was also surprised. He recognized her as the woman who had regarded him as a thief in the battle of flying immortals. What a coincidence indeed. Lin Sun smiled, his eyes playful. He glanced at Ji Qian and said, "If I guessed correctly, you were the one who tried to take away the treasure in my hands, right?" Ji Qian snorted coldly. "Back then, you stole the divine medicine of my Xuanji sect in the Battle of Flying Immortals. I haven't settled the score with you." Lin Sun sneered. "Oh, is that Battle of Flying Immortals the backyard of your Xuanji sect? Just because some divine medicine without a master caught your eye, it became yours? Everyone, let's not talk about past grievances. It's just a small matter. If Brother Lin had any losses, let me, Meng Yi, compensate you, okay?" Meng Yi said with a smile. His voice was gentle, like a spring breeze. "No." Lin Sun's answer was very stiff. Meng Yi's expression froze, as if he did not expect Lin Sun to be so difficult to deal with. Ji Qian and Jiang Heng were already angry, glaring at Lin Sun. They were about to say something when they were stopped by Meng Yi. Meng Yi said, "Forget it. The treasure refining site is about to fall into a seal. Instead of arguing about the trivial matters of the past, it's better to leave this place first." Lin Sun and who looked at each other and did not object. Next, Meng Yi brought Ji Qian and Jiang Heng with him and took the lead. They landed steadily on a fat and huge green leaf on the ascending vine. Hu and Lin Sun also chose a leaf and stepped on it. There was no need to climb at all. The thick vine began to shrink rapidly into the sky, bringing Lin Sun and the others into the sky. "Brother Lin, I'm Meng Yi from the Cheongqi battle clan." On the way, Meng Yi cupped his hands and spoke. Lin Sun glanced at him and said, "It's not that I'm being unreasonable, but you can just say what you want." Meng Yi thought for a moment and said, "I'm here with the intention of heading to a dangerous place in the Kunlun ruins to search for a fortuitous encounter. With the help of the flying celestial token, I have a 70% chance of obtaining this fortuitous encounter." Before he could finish, Lin Sun smiled. "You're also here for the flying celestial token?" Ji Qian and Jiang Heng could not help but frown. They felt that Lin Sun's smile and words carried an indescribable sense of ridicule, which made them feel very uncomfortable. However, Meng Yi seemed to be unaware of it and nodded calmly. "That's right. However, I don't want to make things difficult for Brother Lin. If it's possible, I hope to cooperate with Brother Lin and go to that place of fortuitous encounter together. Brother Lin will definitely have a share of the gains." Before Lin Sun could reply, Hu suddenly said, "Fellow Taoist, can you reveal which place of fortuitous encounter we're going to?" Meng Yi fell silent for a moment and said, "The pilgrimage platform." It was just 3 words, but it caused Hu's beautiful eyes to narrow as she said, "As far as I know, since ancient times, anyone who entered that place never returned. It can be said to be the most forbidden place in the Kunlun ruins. Even with the help of the flying celestial token, it won't be of much use." Meng Yi said in surprise, "Miss, you know about the pilgrimage platform as well?" "That's right, since ancient times, no one has been able to survive from it. However, it's different this time." As he spoke, he flipped his palm and a sealed scroll appeared. Even though it was sealed, it still emitted a vast and mysterious aura. It was like a decree from the heavens. Although it was not revealed, it already possessed supreme power. "This is a scroll of the pilgrimage tablet inscription that my ancestor obtained by chance. There are some clues imprinted with supreme divine power, all of which are related to the pilgrimage platform. With this treasure and the help of the flying celestial token, it's enough for me to make a trip there." Meng Yi revealed a confident look. The pilgrimage tablet inscription. Both Ji Qian and Jiang Heng were surprised. They did not know that Meng Yi had such a magical item in his possession. Hu looked at Lin Sun. It was up to Lin Sun to make the decision. However, she had already told Lin Sun that Meng Yi would not dare to lie because without the flying celestial token, he would not dare to enter the pilgrimage platform. Under such circumstances, even if he harbored evil intentions, he would at least not dare to act recklessly during the trip to the pilgrimage platform. Lin Sun said, "I'm very curious. What exactly is hidden in the pilgrimage platform that makes you insist on going even though you know it's dangerous?" Meng Yi said word by word, "Rumor has it that the secret to becoming an emperor or ancestor is hidden there." His words shocked everyone, and their hearts trembled. Becoming an emperor or ancestor, not to mention a peerless great saint, even a quasi-emperor or a half-step emperor would fight for such a supreme opportunity if they knew about it. At that moment, Lin Sun fell silent as well. You don't have to make a decision in a hurry. There's still half a month before you go to the pilgrimage platform. If you make a decision during this time, you can contact me at any time. As he spoke, Meng Yi handed a message talisman to Lin Sun. Crush this talisman, and I will come to meet you at once. After a pause, he continued, to show my sincerity, I will go in and out with you in this operation. If I encounter any ignorant fools who try to obstruct me, I will be the first to kill them. As he finished speaking, a wisp of piercingly cold coldness suffused his warm eyes. I'll think about it. Lin Sun took the message talisman. Meng Yi smiled and said, I look forward to working with an extraordinary person like Brother Lin. From beginning to end, he had been humble and gentle, well-behaved, well-mannered, and sincere. Even Lin Sun could not find a reason to hate him. Of course, one could not judge a person's heart from his face. Anyone who could become a peerless great saint was not a simple character. Boom! Not long after, the sky-climbing vine shook violently and rushed into a deep and dark crack in the sky with Lin Sun and others. Chapter 1804. Rich and pure vitality rushed over. In a flash, Lin Sun felt that he had entered a deity land. The mountains and rivers here were verdant, the land was vast and the resources were abundant. The sky was crystal blue, and all the plants were full of vitality. Some common wildflowers were gushing with wisps of essence, filling the air with a refreshing fragrance. Many ancient trees stood tall in the sky. When the branches and leaves on them swayed, a waterfall-like light rain would fall, which was formed by rich vitality. Everything looked like the legendary Holy Land, a blessed land where the gods lived. Moreover, different from the treasure-refining place, there were amazing life fluctuations in this world. Screech! In the sky, a clear cry broke through the clouds. A group of white cranes, like a group of white rainbows, flashed across the sky. Kunlun cranes. It is said that these cranes are born with the Kunlun ruins, which is an auspicious sign. I didn't expect that we would see them as soon as we arrived. Meng Yi praised and said with a smile, Doesn't this mean that we will be able to avoid danger and have good luck? Thank you, Brother Meng. Ji Qian also smiled. Lin Sun and who looked around and sensed silently. They were not the only group in this mountain and river. In the area not far away, other cultivators emerged out of thin air one after another. As soon as they arrived, they couldn't help but exclaim. Because this world was really beautiful, a pure land of immortals. Standing in it, one could naturally feel the breath of the Great Way without exerting any force at all. Where's the sky-climbing vine just now? Why did it disappear? Lin Sun asked suddenly. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect that Lin Sun would pay attention to such an inconspicuous little problem. Even so, Meng Yi explained patiently, the sky-climbing vine is just a means to enter the Kunlun ruins. It connects the treasure-refining place and the Kunlun ruins. Brother Lin can regard it as a bridge between the two worlds. Lin Sun nodded. He didn't speak without thinking, but he remembered the origin of the treasure-refining place. If he hadn't obtained the copper piece left behind by the artifact-refining furnace, he wouldn't even dare believe that such a large treasure refinement area was actually formed from the artifact-refining furnace. What was the origin of this Kunlun realm relic that he was standing on? Could it be? Was it also transformed from some kind of divine object? It was obvious that neither Meng Yi nor anyone else could answer this question. A shrill cry suddenly sounded out in the distance, and it was extremely miserable and shrill. It seemed to be extremely ear-piercing amidst this peaceful and tranquil atmosphere. Lin Sun and the others were awestruck and looked over at the same time. In front of an ancient tree in the distance, a purple-robed man's neck was strangled, and his body was suspended in midair. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. What was strangling his neck was a verdant tree branch that was hundreds of feet long. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the purple-robed man's body rapidly shriveled up. It was as if all of his energy, blood, and flesh were being devoured. In the end, even the skin that was left turned into ashes and scattered on the ground. This strange and terrifying scene caused the expressions of countless people in the surroundings to change greatly, and they exclaimed in shock while a chill ran down their spines. That's the first successor of Tsangyue Saber sect. He is also a great saint with strong combat power. But he died just like that? Someone was frightened and said in a trembling voice. They had just arrived at the Kunlun realm relic, and a great saint had suffered such a terrible disaster. Who wouldn't be frightened? Many people realized that this world in front of them seemed to be as peaceful as a pure land of immortals, but in fact there were many unknown dangers buried in it. It had been like this since ancient times. Lin Sun looked carefully. The branches of the ancient tree were verdant, towering to the sky, and flowing with vitality like a waterfall. It looked extremely sacred, and there was no trace of danger at all. But who would have thought that one of its branches could easily kill a peerless great saint? When he looked at the mountains and rivers again, Lin Sun couldn't help showing a dignified expression, and a strong sense of crisis surged in his heart. Don't approach a forest, avoid a mountain, take a detour when you encounter water, retreat when you encounter fog. Ahu said softly. This is a lesson learned by countless seniors who have gone to the Kunlun ruins in the past with their blood and lives. We can't be careless. As she spoke, she looked at Meng Yi and the others and said, Everyone, we're leaving this place first. All right, I'll wait for your reply. Meng Yi did not ask them to stay. Farewell. Lin Sun and Ahu turned around and left. At the same time, many cultivators who had arrived at the Kunlun ruins started moving one after another, flashing in different directions. The Kunlun ruins were huge. No one knew how many secrets were hidden in this world, and no one could measure its vastness. The cultivators who had entered the Kunlun ruins this time had come prepared. They had planned ahead of time, and there was no lack of illustrations and clues related to the Kunlun ruins in their hands. Therefore, when they moved, they would not wander around like headless flies. If they did, it would be extremely easy for them to encounter mishap. Just like the purple-robed man from before, he was strangled to death just by getting close to an ancient tree. Similarly, it was the same for Ahu. She had come for an immortality peach tree. With her leading the way, Lin Sun naturally did not have to worry about accidentally entering a dangerous place. Brother Meng, what exactly do you plan to do? Are you really going to work with them? Ji Qian could not help but ask via voice transmission when Lin Sun and Ahu's figures disappeared. Meng Yi smiled and asked, Why not? If we really try to snatch it by force, I'm afraid we won't be able to take them down without paying a heavy price with our strength. Are you sure? Ji Qian stared at Meng Yi. He had a feeling that Meng Yi was plotting something. Meng Yi patted Ji Qian's shoulder and said warmly, Brother Ji, we're old friends. You just have to follow me. I've already decided on everything else. After a pause, he looked into the distance and said, Let's go. Before heading to the pilgrimage platform, let's go to a blessed land first. If we're lucky, we might even be able to obtain some good things. As he spoke, he walked forward with his hands behind his back. Ji Qian and Jiang Heng looked at each other and followed. Eldest senior brother, do you trust this person? Jiang Heng asked via voice transmission. She was somewhat worried. Meng Yi gave her the feeling that he was like an unfathomable abyss. He was shrewd and unfathomable. Don't worry. Meng Yi won't dare to do anything to us. Ji Qian was very confident. He came from the Ji clan, an imperial family, and had a very deep relationship with the Cheongqi battle clan. Moreover, he had been friends with Meng Yi for a long time and was very clear about Meng Yi's character. However, the only thing that Ji Qian was not sure about was whether Meng Yi really decided to cooperate with Lin Sun and Hu just for the flying fairy token. A silver hairpin floated in front of Hu, guiding the way. Lin Sun followed closely behind, extremely vigilant along the way. The Kunlun ruins was like a paradise, with mountains and rivers, flowing with immortal clouds and full of vitality. But no one knew how many dangers were hidden here. Look, isn't that Lin Sun? On the way, a group of figures appeared. When they saw Lin Sun and Hu, they couldn't help but show hostility. Lin Sun glanced at them and immediately recognized that they were Kuan Jilin and the successors of the primitive Taoism court. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes burn with hatred. Lin Sun was about to make a move without the slightest hesitation, but he was stopped by Hu. Don't move. This area is filled with too many dangers. Pull one hair and the whole body will be affected. Don't forget how that Songyue Saber Sect's disciple died. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed, and he restrained his killing intent. Lin Sun, aren't you very bold? Why don't you dare to make a move? Kuan Jilin said coldly with a hint of sarcasm. At this time, they were only a few hundred feet away from each other. But it was obvious that Kuan Jilin and the others had no intention of making a move. They must have known that they would encounter unpredictable dangers if they made a move here. Lin Sun retorted sarcastically, "If it weren't for one Qingshu last time, I'm afraid you would have been a dead man, right?" Kuan Jilin's face suddenly became ugly. "I'll give you a chance. If you dare to make a move now, I promise to give you a dignified death. If you don't dare, get out of my way." Lin Sun and Hu went straight forward, not avoiding Kuan Jilin and the others at all. Kuan Jilin's face turned red, and the blue veins on his forehead bulged. He almost couldn't help making a move several times. But in the end, he could only watch Lin Sun and Hu swagger past them. Useless! Lin Sun left these two words and went away without looking back. Lin Sun, the next time we meet, I will tear you into pieces. Kuan Jilin could no longer control his anger, and let out a roar, full of killing intent. Beside him, all the descendants of the prehistoric Dao court were furious as well. Lin Sun was looking down on them too much. Boom! Suddenly, a gray and hazy bolt of lightning flashed in the nearby area. Kuan Jilin was startled and quickly restrained the overflowing killing intent. The gray lightning seemed to lose its target and soon collapsed and disappeared. Seeing this scene, Kuan Jilin and the others all gasped. If they couldn't help but attack Lin Sun just now, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. At the same time, Lin Sun also noticed the sudden appearance of the gray lightning in his heart. So, in this Kunlun relic, there is no way to fight at all? He couldn't help asking. Just now, Kuan Jilin just showed a trace of killing intent, and a gray lightning was drawn out, which was too shocking. Hu shook her head. It's not that exaggerated. The Kunlun relic has its own rules of heaven and earth. When we adapt to the rules here, we can identify and see through some of the dangers buried in this world. Lin Sun nodded. 10 minutes later, with a buzz, the silver hairpin leading the way trembled slightly and suddenly pointed to a direction. There was a vast forest there, with branches and leaves reaching to the sky and covering the sun. Hu was obviously prepared for this. She flipped her palm, and a black tree branch appeared in front of her. Chapter 1805. Taking a deep breath, Hu took the immortality peach tree in his hand and led the way. In the Kunlun relic, there has always been a saying that don't enter the forest. I'm sure that there must be great dangers in this forest. We should be careful when we act later. She exhorted. Whoosh! Lin Sun took out the broken sword, carried the insignificant bow on his back, and covered his whole body with a soft silver armor. This armor was one of the trophies he obtained from the Child of Hell when he was at the Great Wall of the Imperial Pass. It was called Heavy Wave and contained 64 sets of defensive Taoist patterns, which was quite precious and rare. Soon, the two entered the forest. Their field of vision suddenly darkened, and a gloomy and horrible aura came to their faces. Ahu's expression also became solemn. In the forest, ancient trees towered into the sky, and vines as thick as pythons hung down. The ground was piled up with a thick pile of decayed leaves, which made a rustling sound when they stepped on it. The air was cold and damp with a rancid smell. Walking in it, the sky was covered by the shade of the trees. It was dark and gloomy, and the silence was frightening. According to the information I've obtained, there are numerous strange poisonous insects hibernating in this forest, and all of them are extremely terrifying. In the past, many experts that have come to search for the immortality peach tree have unfortunately suffered misfortune here, and not even their corpses remain. On the way, Ahu said, but even so, it still can't stop practitioners from coming here, because peach trees are so magical that they can drive people crazy. It's really weird here. Walking in it makes my mind unsteady, as if there is a kind of force interfering with my soul silently. Lin Sun frowned. It's normal. In the past, many practitioners got lost here because their souls were eroded, so that they suffered a disaster before they even noticed it. Along the way, the two moved forward vigilantly and saw many horrible scenes. There were ferocious and gloomy beast roars, which shook the trees and made them rustle. There were ferocious birds flying in the sky, exuding a barbaric overlord's aura. Just looking at them from a distance made Lin Sun and Ahu feel cold. It was too horrible. At the same time, there were many ferocious creatures that didn't exist in the outside world. For example, a black snail as huge as a mountain, a dark green centipede with thousands of compound eyes, even Lin Sun and Ahu could only retreat far away, because those ferocious creatures were so powerful that they couldn't fight against them at all. Fortunately, they were extremely vigilant along the way. Once they noticed something was wrong, they would take a detour and avoid it early. This place is really terrible. If we rush into it rashly, no matter who we are, I'm afraid we will suffer. Lin Sun knew very well that if Hu hadn't led the way, they wouldn't have been able to reach this point, because there were too many dangers along the way. In the Kunlun realm, there are countless such places of danger. Comparatively speaking, that pilgrimage platform is the most taboo place of danger. Ahu said quickly, before I came to the Kunlun of ruins, I spent. Ahu. Before ruins, I suddenly, Lin Sun's hair stood on end. Blazing divine light flowed out of his body, and he carried Ahu and dodged far away. Soundlessly, an enormous hole appeared where they stood earlier, and then a swarm of thumb-sized multicolored insects surged out from the hole like tidewater. They were a dense mass of insects, and every single one of them emitted a gloomy and savage aura. Multicolored corpse insects. Ahu's eyes narrowed, and her expression suddenly changed. She and Lin Sun stayed far away and restrained their aura. It was because this kind of insect was rumored to be condensed from the corpse chi of great ancient ferocious creatures. It was easy to kill them, but the corpse chi they emitted after death was an extremely terrifying poison. A slight touch would cause one's soul to be corroded and one's cultivation to be tainted. Whoosh! More and more multicolored corpse insects rushed out of the hole and spread in all directions. Lin Sun and Ahu didn't dare to stop and moved forward quickly. Suddenly, a whimpering sound rang out in the depths of the forest. It was like the cry of a god, making one's hair stand on end. Then, those multicolored corpse insects rushed towards Lin Sun and Ahu as if they were driven. Ahu's face changed. Damn it, someone has mastered the method of controlling multicolored corpse insects and wants to deal with us secretly. Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. He spread out his spiritual awareness and swept in the direction of the sound. Vaguely, He could detect a figure hiding in the shadow of a big tree, with a vague aura. Whoosh! But before Lin Sun could locate them carefully, the overwhelming multicolored corpse insects in the nearby area had rushed over. The auras of these insects were gloomy and savage, and they emitted a nauseating aura of death. They covered the surroundings, causing one to be unable to escape or avoid them. "We have to fight our way out." Ahu's beautiful eyes were full of cruelty, but Lin Sun stopped her. Whoosh! Almost in an instant, Little Silver's figure swept out of Lin Sun's body. He glanced at the multicolored corpse insects rushing over, and his handsome little face showed an unspeakable disdain and disgust. Boom! He stepped into the void, exuding a fierce aura, which belonged to the bloodline power of the spirit-eating insects. The bodies of all the multicolored corpse bugs that charged over from all directions trembled, and then they rustled as they fell from the sky. They shivered and squeaked, and they seemed as if they were submitting to a monarch. The sound of the sound became urgent and impassioned. It seemed that they had sensed something wrong and were driving the multicolored corpse insects with all their strength. But it was all in vain. Under the deterrence of Little Silver's power, these ferocious and terrifying insects, which were enough to make any cultivator turn pale, were all as obedient as humble slaves. Lin Sun and Ahu looked at each other in shock. Perhaps this was the saying that everything has its vanquisher? It should be noted that Little Silver didn't need to do anything at all. He suppressed these multicolored corpse insects with his aura alone. Go! A more amazing scene appeared. As Little Silver gave the order, the multicolored corpse insects roared up and rushed in the direction of the sound of the distant sound. Oh no! Thousands of meters away, a man in black suddenly changed his face. He put away the bamboo flute in his hand and turned to flee. "Master, shall we go after them?" Little Silver said with a murderous look. "I can feel that there are many insects hibernating in this forest, but their bloodlines are far inferior to mine. I can make them obey my call." Lin Sun and Ahu's eyes lit up at the same time, and they agreed without hesitation. Little Silver immediately led the way, and a swarm of multicolored corpse insects swarmed nearby like pioneers. Lin Sun and Ahu followed him, and they couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. This forest was full of danger. On the way here, the two of them had been extremely vigilant and cautious, and they had almost been killed many times. But now it was completely different. With Little Silver, they could control the vicious poisonous insects scattered in this forest. In this way, the danger they encountered along the way was bound to be reduced to a minimum. Whoosh! More and more insects began to appear in the forest and join Little Silver's team. Among these insects there were green-faced ghost insects, as big as a palm, bamboo devil insects, as thin as needles, and so on. They gathered so densely that they covered the sky and the earth, and Lin Sun and Ahu couldn't help gasping. They couldn't imagine how there could be so many strange and vicious insects hibernating in this forest. Boom! On the way ahead, a huge black snail as big as a mountain was alarmed. Its breath was extremely terrifying. At the beginning, Lin Sun and Ahu would definitely avoid it and not dare to approach it. But at this moment, to Lin Sun and Ahu's astonishment, this huge black snail ran away, crushing countless towering trees along the way. Obviously, this black snail also knew that Little Silver and his insect army were not to be trifled with. If I had known this, I should have released Little Silver before the action. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. Today, he finally opened his eyes and saw the real power of spirit-eating insects. They were really like the king of insects, extremely powerful. "Master, this forest is called the immortal ancient insect lair, and it has existed since ancient times. These insects that are distributed here are all for the sake of protecting the peach blossom secret realm behind the immortal ancient insect lair." On the way, Little Silver communicated with those insects and learned a lot of secret. However, most of these insects had no intelligence, so their knowledge was extremely limited. Even so, Lin Sun and Ahu were refreshed. Peach Garden. The legendary peach tree of immortality must be there. At the same time, in the depths of the forest, the black-clothed man flashed and moved with an anxious expression as if he was frightened. Finally, he came to an empty area in the depths of the forest. It was empty and barren, and only a door with flowing light appeared in the void at the center. In front of the door, a group of cultivators, both men and women, were guarding. They all had extraordinary appearances and wore the same clothes. Obviously, they came from the same force. Oh no, someone is approaching. Go and inform the young master. The black-clothed man said anxiously as soon as he arrived. Those men and women were stunned and showed astonished expressions. Only our myriad origin spirit sect knows the path to the immortal ancient insect lair. How could others possibly get close? That's impossible, right? This path is filled with danger, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to get here alive. Besides that, the young master has just entered the peach garden, and he gave the order that no one is allowed to disturb him. These disciples from the myriad origin spirit sect spoke at once, and their expressions were slightly indifferent. The black-clothed man was anxious to the point his forehead was covered in sweat, and he said, "All of you don't understand at all. That man and woman aren't afraid of our insect control techniques at all. Moreover, the insects in the immortal ancient insect lair are being controlled and controlled by them, and they're charging over here right now." A short moment of silence appeared, and those men and women revealed expressions of disbelief. After all, perhaps their myriad origin spirit sect couldn't compare to the 6 great Tao courts and the 10 great war clans in the starry sky. However, very few powers could compare to them in the Tao of insect control. Yet now, such an unusual thing had actually occurred. How could anyone not be shocked? OM, OM, OM. A wave of hissing that sounded like a tide suddenly resounded from afar. After that, the expressions of those disciples changed drastically, and they finally understood why the black-clothed man was panicking to such an extent. Chapter 1806. The dense swarm of insects that covered the heavens and the earth swept over, and all of them emanated a savage and ferocious aura that caused others to shudder with fear. Attack! The descendants of Tianyuan spirit sect were so frightened that their souls almost flew out of their bodies. All of them subconsciously attacked with all their strength. It was terrible. Even though they were most skilled in the Tao of insect mastery, they'd never experienced such a horrifying scene. Boom! They each took out their treasures and launched their attacks. Seeing this in the distance, Little Silver waved his hand coldly and said, "Kill them." Buzz, 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 the tide of insects roared forward like a rolling black tide. In just a few breaths of time, the descendants of the Sky Primordial Spirit sect had disappeared, leaving behind only a ground of broken bones. Their flesh and souls had all been devoured. Lin Sun and who were both shocked. The lethality of these poisonous insects was beyond their imagination. There were many great saints among those cultivators, but they couldn't withstand their attack at all. Then, Little Silver drove away those vicious insects. Lin Sun and Hu stepped forward and came to the front of the colorful void portal. This was the entrance to the secret realm of Peachland. "You guard here. If anyone approaches, kill him." Little Silver gave the order, and the tide-like poisonous insects all bowed their heads to obey. "Look, this little guy is much more powerful than you now," Ahu joked. Lin Sun smiled bitterly, but he was actually very proud of Little Silver. This little guy had made a great contribution this time. Without any delay, they entered the void door together. Buzz, as if the stars had moved, the scene in front of them suddenly changed. "It's so beautiful!" Ahu was amazed. In her field of vision, there was a boundless peach forest. The flowers were in full bloom, hanging all over the treetops, and the stamens were pink and crystal, flowing with a glow. The peach forest was dazzling, and the air was filled with a refreshing fragrance. A clear stream zigzagged through the peach blossom forest. What was astonishing was that the clear stream water was actually formed by the condensation of dense spiritual energy. The spiritual qi is too rich. This is definitely an auspicious place. Lin Sun was also surprised. In this secret realm, in addition to the peach forest, there were some ancient rocks and plants, all of which were extraordinary and magical. Moreover, the aura of the great way between heaven and earth flowed endlessly like a tide, giving people a feeling that it was close at hand and within reach. It's said that the place where the peach tree takes root is where a first-class divine range in the Kunlun relic converges. Now I see it, it really deserves its reputation, Ahu said, holding the peach branch in her palm and carefully sensing it. After a while, she suddenly looked up at the peach branch and said, "It's over there. Let's go." As they walked forward and entered the peach blossom forest, they felt as if their entire bodies were soaked in spring water of spiritual qi. All they breathed in was the rich vitality of the great path. They felt relaxed and happy, as if they were walking on air. If one looked carefully, every single peach tree was exceptionally vigorous. Their branches and leaves were jade green, as if they were carved from jade, and they flowed with a green glow, causing them to seem extremely miraculous. Unfortunately, they weren't true immortal peach trees, just ordinary spiritual plants. However, they were far superior to some of the ancient trees in the outside world. Stop! Suddenly, several figures appeared in front of them. All of them had extraordinary auras, especially the golden-armored man in the lead. When he opened and closed his eyes, divine light shot out. It was extremely terrifying. After carefully sensing them, they realized that all of them were ultimate sage. Lin Sun and Ahu looked calm. They were not surprised. When they entered this place earlier, there was a group of cultivators guarding the entrance of the secret realm. Obviously, someone had entered this place long ago. "How did you get in?" The golden-armored man was aggressive. His eyes were as cold as knives as he glanced at Lin Sun and Ahu. This made Lin Sun feel strange. Obviously, the golden-armored man did not know his identity. Ahu said via voice transmission, "If I'm not wrong, they should have entered the Kunlun ruins from another entrance, so they don't know our identities." Lin Sun came to a realization. When he was at the Flying Deity River, he had learned that there was more than one entrance to the Kunlun ruins. "Of course, we walked in," Lin Sun said casually. The golden-armored man's face darkened and he ordered, "Then please walk back. If you don't, die." Boom. Lin Sun took a step forward, and the aura around him rumbled as he pushed out his palm. He could not be bothered to talk nonsense. Lin Sun's domineering and direct actions infuriated the golden-armored man. Without hesitation, he also pushed out his palm with all his strength. However, in the next moment, he was suppressed to the ground by a slap. Boom! The earth trembled, the peach trees nearby swayed, and the petals fell in profusion. "You want to occupy this place with just this little ability? You're courting death, aren't you?" Lin Sun said calmly. The golden-armored man's companions were shocked at first, and then they became angry and attacked together. Bang! 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 A series of explosions rang out. Lin Sun attacked decisively, suppressing these powerhouses one by one and making them kneel on the ground. From the beginning to the end, Ahu had been watching with a smile. Did these idiots really think that they could be lawless just because they became great saints? Didn't they see how Yen Chunjun and Luong died? "Who are you?" The golden-armored man's expression was already aghast. In a casual manner, he suppressed them one by one. This made him realize that he had kicked an iron plate this time. However, the golden-armored man could not remember when such a peerless, ruthless person had appeared on the starry ancient path. That face was too strange. "Does it matter who we are?" Lin Sun's eyes were full of killing intent. Noticing this scene, the golden-armored man felt cold all over and said, "My friend, we are the descendants of 10,000 spirit sect. It was just a misunderstanding just now. Please forgive us." 10,000 spirit sect? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. The golden-armored man and others nodded quickly. Sorry, I haven't heard of it. Lin Sun shook his head. His words stunned the golden-armored man and others. If he was a practitioner on the starry ancient path, how could he not have heard of 10,000 spirit sect? This guy must have pretended to be confused on purpose. They really wronged Lin Sun, but Lin Sun would not explain. Next, a dull sound rang out. Soon after, the place quieted down, and a pile of corpses lay on the ground. The brave one in a head-on confrontation. If Lin Sun was not strong enough this time, he was doomed to end the same way. Without delay, Lin Sun and who continued to move forward. 10 minutes later, the field of vision in front of them suddenly widened, and the peach forest all over the mountains and fields disappeared. A plain with colorful luster appeared. Divine light and auspicious clouds flowed, and the world was bathed in a sacred atmosphere. Look! Ahu's eyes lit up. In the center of the plain, there was an ancient tree that seemed to hold up the sky. Its branches were like umbrellas, covering the sky and the sun, and its trunk was as thick as a dragon, soaring into the sky. Rays of multicolored light drifted down from the tree like rainbows, and also like galaxies, incomparably sacred. There was a breath of divinity in the air here. Taking a deep breath was like swallowing ambrosia, opening all the pores all over the body and making them feel comfortable all over. Lin Sun could not help but gasp in shock. This place was as unreal as a legend, too dreamy and sacred. The two moved forward at the same time, and soon saw the true appearance of this divine tree. It was extremely vigorous, with the veins on the trunk like pythons and dragons, showing a kind of jade-like luster, and its leaves were green, blooming auspicious clouds. The closer they got, the more insignificant they felt, because this divine tree was too tall, like the backbone of the world. The immortality peach tree. Ahu spat out these 3 words in a light voice. She saw the fruits on the tree, and they were dazzling like suns. A sweet fragrance suffused the air, and penetrated through the emerald-green leaves. The ancient tree flowed with the glow of the Tao, and it formed a shapeless force that prevented the fragrance from leaking out. However, strands of fragrance still permeated the air, and it seeped into their souls and intoxicated them. Those were immortality peaches. They were fist-sized, glistening, pure, and resplendent. Some were crimson-red, some were snow-white, and some were verdant. Some even flowed with hazy violet light and emanated a myriad of strands of Tao radiance. Lin Sun and who were stunned as if they'd seen a miracle. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they would probably not dare believe that such miraculous treasures existed in the world. Wait! Lin Sun suddenly recovered from his shock, and his deep black eyes looked towards the bottom of the immortality peach tree. That place was covered in surging auspicious radiance, and it was dazzling and resplendent. But if one looked carefully, one would notice numerous skeletons piled up on the ground. Some were in the form of humans, and some were left behind by living beings of other races. These skeletons were covered by the divine radiance. If one's mind was completely attracted by the divine fruits on the tree, one would be utterly unable to notice them. Ahu shuddered all over and sobered up. Could these be the experts who came here in search of immortality peaches in the past, but perished here? Lin Sun spoke in a low voice, and his expression became solemn and vigilant. The more incredible a fortune was, the more unpredictable and great danger it was accompanied by. If one was immersed in the divine and tempting scene just now and neglected the dangers here, then it would be extremely easy for one to suffer misfortune. That should be the case. Ahu observed them briefly, and he noticed that the skeletons were extremely well preserved without any damage. However, all of them were suffused with the aura of being eroded by the passage of time. Obviously, they had existed for a very long time. Ahu walked around the divine tree, and he was instantly stunned when he arrived at the back of the divine tree. He quickly sent a voice transmission to Lin Sun, "Brother Lin, come over and have a look." Lin Sun walked over and looked along Ah Hu's gaze, and he saw 3 figures standing at the bottom of the divine tree. A blue-robed man with an ancient sword on his back, a woman in a phoenix robe with her long hair coiled up in a bun, and a white-haired Taoist in linen robe who looked like a teenager. All of them had their eyes closed, and their breath was faintly discernible. They were silent and motionless like old monks in meditation, which was extremely strange. Not far away there stood a green wooden tablet, on which a line of words was engraved in ancient Taoist script. Life is like a dream. How many springs and autumns do people live? Apart from this, there was no other record. Lin Sun was stunned and thought, what does this mean? Is there any mystery hidden in it? Ah Hu seemed to have guessed something, and he gently read this sentence on the tablet. As his voice sounded, an incredible scene appeared. A wisp of crystal-clear auspicious light fell from the peach tree, bathing Ah Hu's figure in it.